deze komt met zitten, maar met een half. Ja, sorry. Still, I think it's still yeah. I think he's curriculum maybe something. Emphasis is still doing officially. I'll find out. I don't know. He told me he's still doing something. I think so. What?
What? And I can't call this number. You going?
Yeah, where are you? We need to start. I didn't I didn't see it. Hold on a second. Let me look. I know. You're working on it for you. Oh, here. Okay, yes, I see it. Got it. Judah's here. Judah's here. I need to double check that it's something to that.
Yeah, I'll check it.
What do I have into that? Who do I have into that? Huh? Okay. Who's missing? We only have 5 now. We're only 5 now. Who's missing? Jerry? Who's missing? Who's missing? Oh, what goes in the back? Okay. Yeah, we got you. What?
This is like this is
tonight's meeting to order. Tonight's meeting has been advertised according to New Jersey State Sunshine Law. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Yes.
Mr. Gelli,
Here.
Mr. Lieberman.
Here.
Mr. Langley, Mr. Natale.
Here.
Mr. Ribbiat.
Yes.
Mr. Ingram. Mr. Gross.
Here.
Mr. Halverson.
Here. I see you're missing a couple of members. I'll be seating Mr. Gross in lieu of the members that are missing. Ask everyone to please rise to salute to the flag. Mayor.
Allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, liberty and justice for all. Can I have approved the minutes of July 12th meeting? Mayor Gelli, second. Second, Tally. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mr. Gelli.
Yes.
Mr. Lieberman.
Yes.
Mr. Natale, I don't see him here.
Yes.
Mr. Natale. Mr. Ribbiat.
Yes.
Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Mr. Halverson.
Yes. Madam Secretary, do we have any correspondence for tonight's meeting?
No, we do not.
We do not. Okay, so there's no old business, so we're gonna go straight into new business. And we're here with 12 members. I'm gonna go a little bit with the easy applications first, and then we're gonna move into diamond communication. But I'm sorry, yes, 12 members. I'm sorry. 6 members.
No.
Yeah. Don't mind me. I just got to look the flag. So we're gonna start with the easy one first, and I'll take 4192 Esther Frankel.
420 Global Avenue, lot 548, lot 4, R75 zone. Use variance to duplex on an undersized lot, require 10,000 square feet, proposed 9,500 square feet.
Yes, I have it. Who's here from Frankel?
I need these.
No, you do? Okay.
We're ready, but no, that's where we're going.
I know. It's always good to hit you with some surprise.
I appreciate it.
You can wait a few minutes till we get the other 6 members seated.
Drew, I'm not gonna put this all in.
Well, it just seems odd that the only person that he doesn't pledge allegiance on the main one.
Flannery, would you raise your right hand, sir? Do you swear or affirm that the whole truth is telling?
I do. Brian Flannery, Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer and professional planner. The application this evening is for a conditional use and bulk variance for a lot on Laurel Avenue. A1 is a copy of the tax map I've highlighted in pink. Lot 4, which is located on the southerly side of Laurel Avenue and north of the county park. Looking at Terry's report, on page 2, he indicates we're in the R75 zone. Duplexes are permitted on 10,000 square feet, lots 50 feet wide. This particular property is just shy of the 10,000 square feet. It's 9,500 square feet. If it had an additional 10 feet for the park, it would be a by right application. The applicant could go to the building department, get a building permit to build it. With respect to the area that is in an area in need of redevelopment, it's an area that's been redeveloping. Holly Street has duplexes on it. The Laurel Avenue on the west side of Clover Street has duplexes on it. And it's in an area, this is an appropriate use of the property. The relief that's requested, in my opinion, is de minimis because nobody's going to know that. It's 10 less feet in the people's backyard. Looking at the master plan of 2017 with respect to justification for the variance, on page 2 it talks about background information and it talks about all the growth we've had. It continues on page 3 to say, based on all this, we should provide housing needed for the expected population. The vision statement of the same master plan of 2017 on page 7 says encourage development and redevelopment based on smart growth planning principles. It's my testimony that this does this. The municipal land use law, NJSA 40:55B2, under the purpose of the act is aiding towards municipal action to guide the appropriate use of development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. And again, it's my testimony that this does this. If it's a need variance, we need to show particular cases and special reasons. I think the location of the property, the fact that it's such de minimis relief that's required, certainly justifies the variance. Continuing in Terry's report, he indicates bulk variance relief is needed with a side yard setback. We're proposing 7 and 7. Typically in Lakewood for the duplex, which has a 0 lot line, which is what we're proposing, in the middle, we just have 2 sides. But if the board feels that 15 feet aggregate setback is required, we would ask for that. My opinion, and the way it's been handled in the past, is that's not really what's required. Under his review comments, he indicates I should discuss the proposed architecture with respect to the number of floors. An architectural plan was submitted. As the board will see, it follows what the board typically likes to see, which is only one outside entrance to the basement. The steps going to the attic are through an internal stairway. The front is 1/3 upgraded architectural, and it's all the things that the board generally likes to see. So based on, that's my testimony, Mr. Chairman, and it's my testimony that the relief requested is justified.
Okay.
Mr. Flannery, the stairway going to the attic is going to be separated from the stairway from the first to the second floor?
The first to the second floor is internal, so it's not, there's no outside access.
Okay.
Okay, just a quick question. Don't we need 60 feet for a duplex instead of 50?
For a newly created lot, you would need 60. For the existing lot, which this is, 50 is what's required.
Okay. And this is not any subdivision of another?
No, it's not. There's an existing house on there that's been in need of redevelopment for a long time. I had friends that lived across the street 20 years ago, and this house was in need of redevelopment at that time.
Okay. And the stairs to the basement, is that what I'm seeing under the family room in the back of the house? Is that where you go down to the basement? Is that what I'm seeing?
My understanding is there would be stairs from the front going to the basement, and the only other stairs, and you're right, you're not showing on the plan, but there would only be one set of stairs from the exterior to the basement.
Okay, so what's that in the back then? Is that a door or a window on the side of the stairs?
That's a window on the side of the
That's a window? So then that's just internal stairs going down to the basement?
Yes.
Okay.
But it does appear that, and knowing the property, it drops off, there may be an outside exit in the back of underneath the deck. At that point to get in.
I don't have a basement though. I don't have any elevations, so I can't.
The applicant did not submit it, but I'm representing there would only be one outside entrance to the basement. It would not be along either side of the dwelling.
Okay.
I don't see it at all.
The plan doesn't show it. My understanding was it was going to be in the front in the typical fashion, but the plan clearly shows that's not the case. The only availability for it is in the rear of the house, under the deck.
So this, the stairs to the basement, that's internal?
That's correct.
That's for the residents of the house? And
That is correct.
So
That is correct. You need to come through the dining room and then past the study, and you get it, right, before you get to the breakfast area, is where you get to the steps. That's the only way to get to the other set of stairs, which goes to the basement, as well as goes to the attic.
And why would they continue from the center stairs? Why isn't that an odd place? The set of stairs that's in the middle of the house, going to the second floor. Isn't that generally where the one continuous steps from the main floor to the basement?
Yes, and my understanding is internally there will be steps at that point. There's a second staircase which provides access to the outside, because it drops off to the rear. So when you go from the family room to those steps, you go to a landing which will provide access to the rear yard. and at that point, there would be an availability to also have steps to the basement.
And those steps are for whom? What are those steps for?
Those steps would be for, it certainly seems inconvenient that it would be for a rentable unit. What we are asking,
It looks very convenient for an additional rental unit, actually. It's
Well-
right off the back door, people can come right in.
but there will only be one set of stairs from the exterior to the basement. So, the issue of two rentable basements, is, the normal standard is that there's only one outside entrance, and that's the only available location for the outside entrance.
I understand, but I see this as an easy opportunity to have that door from the outside in the back, another set of stairs right into the basement, you have a second basement rental.
Second, where's the first basement rental come from?
What I understood from you is that the stairs are gonna be, the outside exterior entrance to be in the front of the house?
But it's either in the front or the back.
Okay,
Not both.
so this set of stairs will not exist if there's an outside entrance in front?
There will only be one outside entrance to the
I
basement.
understand, how many stairwells to the basement will there be?
Well, there'll be an internal stairwell to the basement,
Which it will be where?
in the middle.
Okay, and the one in the back will not exist if there's
The
one
one
in
in the
front?
back will not go to the basement. It could be a door going outside so that the residents can get to the outside through that stairwell.
So when I see those stairwell, that's a mistake? I see steps going in the back here.
The architect normally gives a basement floor plan, and they didn't in this particular case. So what I'm representing is there will only be one outside entrance to the basement,
And how many internal ways to the basement will there be?
only one.
Okay, so it's either the one in the middle of the house or the one in the back?
Correct.
Ryan, the one in the back, I'm looking at it here, is stairs down.
Yes.
You know, it's an arrow downwards.
So the-
You're saying it's down from the family room, first floor, down to the
To
outside?
the outside.
To the outside, underneath the deck,
Underneath.
but not to the basement.
Well, again, since I don't have a basement plan, and I know that the board only allows one outside entrance, the plan doesn't show a outside entrance from the front. So if they don't put in an outside entrance from the front, then that would allow an outside entrance in the rear.
I understand. Okay.
So one second, Brian, so there's no entrance in the front, or yes, entrance in the front?
The plans don't show an entrance in the front.
So then there's no entrance in the front?
Okay, let's just say there's no frontage.
We have two
Okay.
entrances, you're
Okay.
representing two entrances.
No, I'm representing one entrance, but now to clarify for the board, one entrance to the, one exterior entrance to the basement. So the applicant is okay with saying there will be no front outside entrance to the basement.
No front.
There'll be one outside entrance to the basement in the rear, because that's what the plan shows.
Are those,
And one set,
those the
and one
stairs
set
are
of interior steps.
along the side of the family rooms over there?
Yes,
Not behind the family room, on the side.
on the side of the family.
Okay. Okay. Anyone from the public want to be heard on application 4192, Esther Franco? Seeing none, we'll close to the public. Anyone want to say a final comment or put in a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
4192.
4192, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
With what was discussed now with the stairs?
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, fine. So I have a motion from Mayor Gilly to approve with the stipulation that we just discussed about the stairs.
Second.
I have a second from Kelly. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mr. Gelli.
Yes.
Mr. Lieberman.
Yes.
Mr. Natale.
Yes.
Mr. Vidya.
Yes.
Mr. Gross.
Okay.
Okay, you write that down, Mr. Halpern, then?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, he sent me an email earlier today.
Yes, I see it.
Okay? Okay, next. Doobie Holding. Who's here representing Doobie Holding?
Mr. Pfeffer is doing it, but.
Adam Pfeffer, and he's not here.
Adam Pfeffer is not here.
Later.
Yeah, I know. And then we have 1364 River. Is that also Mr. Pfeffer?
Also, Mr. Pfeffer.
Is he used also? Okay, so now we're going to move on to 4204 FWH.
Yes.
FWH Associates, 52 Mohawk Place, lot 2.07, lot 9, R12 zone, variance for front yard setback on 7 Old Drive. 22.9 feet proposed, 3 feet required.
Mr. Flannery, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, so help you God?
I do. Ryan Flannery, Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer and professional planner. This application, as indicated, is for a front setback variance on a corner lot. There was a stakeout error by FWH Associates, and the surveyor picked the wrong backyard and used that backyard dimension to the wrong street. And what's occurred is we had a house that's built at 22.9 feet from the side right away of the property where 30 feet is required. A1 is a copy of the tax map showing the location of the subject property. A2 is a copy of the variance map that's submitted. It shows the site triangulation and indicates that the building is not in the site triangulation. The setback is very typical with what's set back in all R7.5 developments, where they're set back at 25 feet, 22.9 is pretty much the same type of a setback. The plot plan that was submitted when it was done showed a recharge area for the roof drains. There was an existing house there. That house is being replaced by this new house. The applicant or the owner of the new house was coming here with their family at 8 o'clock to indicate some of the preferences and to indicate what a hardship would be if there was a delay in time that would occur by knocking the foundation and moving it. But with respect to the relief requested, as indicated in Terry's report, the minimum setback from Mohawk Place that's required by ordinance is 30 feet. That is what was shown on the plot plan that was done. That is what was intended to be built. This is a stakeout error on the part of FWH, and I was one of the founding partners of FWH in 1989, and this is the first time since then that FWH staked something out in the wrong place, and I have to come to the board to ask for relief of that. Looking at the for justification for the variance, if you look at the master plan in 2017, the background information that goes into all the families we have. This is a particular family and a very well-respected family in Lakewood that's moving there with their children, and it's a house that has ramps and can accommodate the needs of this family. They're also fighting, and Mrs. Freed, the builder, was also coming at 8 o'clock, but I think it's something that I can represent on her behalf. There's a rush in order to get into the house for both the family. The wife is pregnant and expecting soon. The contingencies they have with the New Jersey American Water on the utilities would be in jeopardy without the approval. So again, the master plan of 2017 says how we need housing needs. The vision statement says encourage development and redevelopment based on smart growth planning principles. And this is taking an existing house in that area, and providing a specific house for a specific family, a well-respected Lakewood family that needs to be there. Municipal land use law, NJSA 40:55D2, under the purpose of the act is A, to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. It's my testimony that this does this. We're asking for a C2 variance, where we have to show that the benefits outweigh the detriments. It's certainly a particular piece of property, it's a corner lot. If this had occurred on an internal lot, there would be no problem. The 22.9 feet is plenty. It occurred on a corner. It occurred outside of the site triangle easement, which is shown on the variance map. So there's no adverse safety impact from a traffic standpoint. And my testimony is there's virtually no detriment, because nobody's really going to see. If you look at 81, the tax map, it's a few corner lots along there, and then most of the internal lots are larger lots, and it's a house that'll fit in well. And since there's virtually no detriment, the benefits of allowing this family to get in soon, allowing it to stay where it is without the impact of demolition and reconstruction, it's my testimony that the variance is justified.
Right.
And
Just for the record.
Adam Pfeffer is representing the applicant as well.
I apologize for about an hour and a half before some rules. Actually, Mr. Fine, Mr. Warren, and we can set the next position.
Do you want to borrow my coat?
Still used to the Zoom meeting.
Okay, Ryan, a couple of things that happen here. You know how this board feels about all the errors and omissions that happen on a constant basis. I think I speak for myself, but I still speak for the name of the board. I think the board is pretty much upset and just over its wits' end with mistakes happening, let alone mistakes that FWH made, but mistakes that when we give them certain approvals and then the approvals don't adhere to, and they build them the way they want it, and then it comes in and says, whoops, we made a mistake, the air conditioners are not supposed to be in the side, they ended up in the side, we're out a foot, we're out 2 feet, we made a mistake by a couple of inches, give us relief, you know. Here, luckily, you found a mistake, we put a building one up, so we can ask you very nicely to fix it. You know, it's just came to the point where I don't know what to say, but it's been ridiculous. Next month, we're having an application here on correspondence on 4 or 5, I don't remember how many number of houses, Brandon, you didn't tell me. There's a number of houses where we said to put the air conditioners in the back.
I think it's about 10.
It's about 10? Okay. We said to put the air conditioners in the back. They went ahead and put them on the side, sold their houses, moved them in, and now they want us next month to go ahead and give them a relief on correspondence because they all moved in. We're not going to come to move out and knock the house down, but here we're at least at the what? Yeah, but they got TCO, so they're looking for a TCO. So, you know, where is my limit over here? And plus, we have 7 feet here. It should be 1 foot, 2 feet, 3 feet. You know, we're at 7 feet plus 3 feet for the stairs. So you're looking at a total of 11 feet. 11 feet. And a side triangle. I don't know if Dave had a chance to look at the side triangle. If it's really according to the Lakewood Township ordinance or not.
That's a 30 by 100 foot side triangle. And Mr. Chairman, I think you're mixing apples with oranges because you're talking about mistakes that the board has to deal with. People are coming back with mistakes. As I indicated, this is a stakeout mistake by
that.
And 42 years doing business in Lakewood, this is the first one I've come here. If we make stakeout mistakes of 6 inches for half of those 42 years, it would be less than what's here this evening. So, and it's more of a imposition on the family that's trying to move in than it is on FWH. FWH would have to write a check. The family would have to wait. So I think in fairness to FWH, who has staked out in Lakewood for 42 years and hasn't made mistakes, they're not one of the ones that comes back and asks you all the time. And in fairness to the family, I would respectfully request.
I understand the natural wage. I understand that those were errors that happened, which was only going to have to deal with. This is something which every wage has to deal with. I got that. But there's a limit to how we get to we're talking about 7 plus 4. You still have a set of stairs, so I'm looking at it as a total of 11 feet.
Well, but
That's what I'm looking at.
But the stairs are permitted to be there, so it's not 7 plus 4 is 11.
The stairs are
It's
permitted to
7.
be there once you are on setback line of 30 feet. The stairs, you can then go ahead and put stairs going down because we'll give you the retrieval of putting in a set of stairs going down to the basement. Because, below ground, one second please. Because it's a below ground variance, right? So we get 30 feet.
It's not a variance.
It's not a, I'm sorry, you're right, it's not a variance. It's a below ground encroachment, so you're not going up.
And nobody's getting relief because you're allowed by ordinance to do that. And this is very similar to an R75. In any of the R75 areas that we have in town, in which there's thousands of units, the corner units are 25 from each corner, as opposed to this, which is 30 from the frontage and 25 from the side. And I think the board knows we have a 40 by 100 foot lot that was presented to this board for a variance in an R12 zone, where the lot is only 40 feet wide, and they're requesting relief. The relief that they're going to get is...
Yeah, and we gave them a hard time last month. And we gave them a hard time. We're going to come back because it doesn't make any sense.
But if they
exactly correct.
If they were asking for 5 feet front setback,
well, and
they had 22.9 feet, I think they would have gotten an approval.
And we gave them a hard time, and we sent them to come back.
Yes.
That's exactly correct. So, to my point, that if this, and it doesn't have a set of stairs on the 22 feet. It's not 2 feet, it's not 5 feet. You have the right place. I'm not saying I don't know where I'm going to go with this. Honestly.
I understand, and I'm uncomfortable being here, but I'm glad that it's only one time in 42 years. And again, as I'm saying, if it was just FWH, they would have to write a check, and that's a monetary thing. This is a family that would be hurt.
I understand.
And the family was planning on coming here at 8 o'clock when they thought they were going to be reached.
Brian, I personally don't think it's a full, it's in 2-3 weeks, we've seen houses in this town go up in the amount of time that you're saying is going to take them to fix this.
The chairman, what are we talking about? Time frame. Because all it is right now, if I understand correctly, and I saw the foundation, it's a matter of making a new foundation, destroying the old one, putting it down, moving the property. How much time would
it would be demolishing the foundation,
which is block.
which you can do block or wall.
But you don't have to demolish the whole thing.
You get a machine,
Yeah.
you come rip it out, you load it into dumpsters and you take it away. And then the footing, which is in the wrong place, gets broken up, put into a dumpster and taken away.
You have to extend the footing, correct?
The builder is going to be here at 8 o'clock. If those are questions that are important, I would suggest we wait till 8 o'clock when the builder shows up and they could tell you how long it would take and why it's an inconvenience for the homeowners.
Brian, houses go up in a speedy time over here. I don't think it's a 4 month repair.
But it's more than a couple weeks. First of all, you got to get a demolition permit, and during these times, everything takes longer. You got to get the.
Well, hold on 1 second, Franny. You have a demo permit?
And just getting workers these days. All you hear on the radio is you don't have workers in restaurants. You don't have. My 14-year-old grandson is working at a restaurant because we know the owner of the restaurant and she can't get anybody there. It's the same thing in the construction field. And again, if these questions are important, Pearl Freed will be here at 8 o'clock and she can answer those questions for you.
Mr. Chairman, I just think first of all, I mean, the fact that I understand that people have they don't want to miss out their nights, but the fact that the builder's not here, we never told anybody what order the application is going to be.
I understand. Yes.
I'm not screaming about that. That's the chairman's job to scream about. But in terms of this, to me, it's not really a time question, it's a monetary question. All the points you brought about, and I'm sure you came up, if you got out over there with a big fat suitcase full of cash, and you said, I need this done, I need it done in a week, it'll be done in a week. And I understand that.
My professional opinion is it would not be done in a week.
Maybe not a
It
week,
would take at
maybe
least
not.
a month. It would take at least a month.
Let him finish, Bill.
Right. I just have one question I want to ask, just more substantive, that I'm just asking because I don't know that. I always thought that the side triangle, you don't get the right to do geometry. It's supposed to be an even triangle. Is that correct or not? I mean, over here it's not an even triangle. It's going from one corner down to.
The reason that it would be an even triangle is because it's a T-type intersection. So Mohawk would be the stop street, and Seminole would be the through street. So what you're really doing is stopping on Mohawk, and that's where your site distance is in waterfront.
So that works in 30 by 100? Is that the formula or just convenience?
No, they actually took the county standards, which is actually more stringent than the township standards. So,
Okay,
as far as site distance, that's not an issue on this. I mean, I have a couple of questions from Mr. Flanagan. So obviously, the board has a problem with this, and there's a couple of things you mentioned. You mentioned something about New Jersey American. What water? What
This is Free, the builder, is the one who raised those concerns and has indicated them to me. And again, she's not here. When she looked on the agenda and she was last on the agenda, she asked me, if she comes back at 8 o'clock, is it going to be okay? I guess what I should have done at the beginning when the board asked was say the builder's not here. But I thought with my explanation, the board would be okay with it.
I didn't understand your point why it's a problem. That's why I brought that
Well, what she indicated is that there's a pending moratorium by New Jersey American Water, and they need to get connected before.
Can't they have the connections done in the street regardless?
Well, the connection goes to the house, and you're not going to put a connection into a house, into a foundation.
No, I understand that, but once they get the connection to the street, back behind the curb line, and
again, I don't have the details. I don't have the details on that. I wasn't working on that.
Okay.
Oh.
All right. And the other question comes up, the basement steps. Can it go on another wall? Maybe that make the board a little happier?
Well, the applicant is picking out a house for his family with special needs children. And if you look at and I have the plot plan that was submitted with me, if you look at the ramps and the other features that are there, they need a plan that accommodates them. And maybe Mrs. Freed, who is here now, could be sworn or affirmed, and she could answer those questions.
Wait, did we share the plot plan?
One second, Judah really wants to say something. Judah, go ahead.
Right, just a couple of questions about the site. I noticed that, is it the side yard that, is it going to be retention water that's dug out?
There are retaining walls on both of the sides, but not any. There's a retaining wall along this side and it loops around to the back. Nothing to do with the site distance at the intersection.
That would matter if the house were to be moved, that would be impacted at all. Correct. So, we don't have any architectural support plans or anything. This is pretty much being looked at as an application because of the mistake here. Is there more than one basement entrance? There were all the other concerns that we have on houses that come for variance. Are any of those issues here?
Again, Mrs. Freed would probably be the best one to, she just said to me, there's only one basement entrance, but if you want to hear from Mrs. Freed, she is here. And if somebody wants to see the plot plan, I don't have.
Slightly what you showed showing out, like, I don't think it's part of the file. Like, please show me something different.
That's the plot plan that was approved after built.
I mean, this is what it's supposed to be.
Yes.
This is basically all the way back.
Well, it's supposed to be shifted roughly 7 feet, 6.9.
Was this a problem of the stakeout or was it a problem of the contract?
There was a problem with the stakeout, and there's a letter that was submitted to the board from Chris Rosati, one of the principals at FWH, indicating that it was a stakeout error.
It wasn't, it wasn't the surveyor surveyed it wrong and it was just measured out.
The surveyor who put the stakes in the ground for the builder to build the house, put them in the wrong place.
And then they dug the hole in the wall.
Yes.
Morning, it's just a question of starting over.
Who picked this up?
The surveyor.
Let's keep the record here.
My question was,
No.
at what point was this determined and who picked this up?
The surveyor, when they went out to do it as the location of the foundation, that time the surveyor measured it properly and said it's in the wrong place.
So after the
And immediately notified everybody so that.
After the foundation was done, that's when.
Yes.
From the surveyor, and none of the inspectors picked up on this.
Nobody picked up on it.
Good to know.
But to me, it indicates what it looked like to me when I drove by it, is that it looks like it fits.
Yeah.
Where's the wheelchair ramp? Going to be in the front and the side of the house or in the back?
Why don't we have,
Mrs. Freed.
Mrs. Freed testify. Mrs. Freed, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth? Okay, close to the mic, please, and spell your last name. Can you give us your full name and spell your last?
Pearl, Freed, F-R-I-E-D.
Brian, can you remember right down?
I think the question was, where's the base of the steps?
Facing, I think if I remember correctly, it's facing the house. Facing the house to the right, 7. On to 7. I just want to correct that no inspectors are at fault here. Because
I said it's good to know that the surveyor came out and realized the
they
mistake.
didn't, when they build the footing and the foundation, the footing and then full inspection, they check the floor plan to be followed in court. And same thing for the foundation. Then we do something called a foundation location, and then we take that from here to here, and we pick up on the ground. The proper thing would be if every builder in town would take and measure accordingly when they stake it out, if it was staked out.
So hold on, it was staked out by the engineer.
Right.
Then
Staked out,
it was staked out in the footing.
right.
And you went as built with the footing.
No,
goes,
foundation,
then
foundation. If the foundation is, we do something called an as-built.
Right, and as built. They don't do that after they.
No, only if the foundation.
That's what it's not after the foundation.
And that's when it's put up.
The only reason I'm requesting that we should leave it is because then the special child is with spinal bifida. And every day that she's stuck in the house and they have to carry her down is otherwise. Why they live in Weston.
Okay. I'm going to open to the public. Unless anyone wants to say something more?
Just wanted to, Brian, the time frame. Who's going to give us clarity on that?
Well, my experience with,
Not if you get workers, no workers. Let's
no,
assume that, not for the
the normal
stories.
time frame, you
Yeah.
lose a month.
You lose a month. You still have to wait right now a month for the resolution anyway.
Well,
I'm assuming if the board acts favorably, we would go to the building department and get the permission to proceed at our own risk.
Brian, you realize that since when you found this until today is over a month. You could have been fixed and done with.
Well, the day we found it, an application was submitted, and the applicant hoped to get on sooner, and did.
Okay, so I got it. By the way, where's the wheelchair ramp I used before?
It's on the left-hand side as you're looking at the house from Mohawk.
I'm looking at the house from Mohawk, the main entrance on Mohawk, so it's on the left-hand side, between your house,
The left-hand side.
between your house, between this house and the neighbor in Mohawk.
Yes.
Right over here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And where are the driveways?
The driveway is off of Mohawk.
The driveway's over Mohawk.
Yes.
Is it on the right side? Right side of the house? From Mohawk?
No, it's over Mohawk. It's not on,
It's on the left, it's on the left side.
On the left.
Yeah. It's on.
Rolls around, I see.
Okay, I'm gonna open it to the public now, to have, people in the public be heard. Please step up, but before anyone comes up to the mic, Brian, are you familiar here of a letter that I accepted as public, statement from a neighbor, from Mary Ann? However you should not so last
Dr.
name.
Mary Ann
Dr.
Sorensen.
Sorensen?
Yes, I am
Okay.
familiar with that letter, and I think
Okay,
that's.
I'm accepting it as proper testimony because of COVID.
Yes.
She doesn't want to show up, so I'm accepting a letter, normally which we wouldn't have done in the past. Do you have any answers for her?
Well, the answers I gave in my testimony,
What?
her first comment is that it's not safe because of the site distance, and even the board engineers indicated that we provided the proper site distance, and this is site distance consistent with the R75, which is all over town. If that type of setback wasn't safe, the R75 setback would be different. She also discussed the stormwater runoff, and this is a previously developed lot, and this applicant on the plot plan provided for a recharge system for the roof drain, so the runoff is being taken care of, and her other comment was with respect to the fumes from the buses, and
Health and ventilation.
Right, the ventilation, and again, it's my testimony that there are units that are much closer to a roadway than 22.9 feet. In the R75, 25 feet is the standard, and that the ventilation issues that she's indicating are not an issue, and the family that's moving in is aware of it, and their preference is to leave the house.
Well, why do you keep talking about the R75?
I was gonna say that.
Well, because we had a 22.9 foot setback from the road, and the implication is that that's an unsafe situation. The R75, the safety isn't gonna be any different. The people driving down the road don't say, well, I'm in an R75, so the houses are closer and I can see better, than an R12. So anywhere where you're in an R75, you're gonna encounter situations like this. Additionally, when it went in, as indicated, the inspectors came out and didn't notice that it wasn't 30 feet. It looks like it fits. So the issues that are raised with respect to a house being set back 22.9 feet from the roadway, making it unsafe for site distance, we provided a plan that shows it's not. Unsafe for ventilation, I think on its face, the board can understand that that's not specifically when we have an R75 zone that allows them to be 25 feet. If there was a ventilation problem, then all the R75 houses would have to be pushed back so they don't smell the exhaust.
Right. You might be right, but nevertheless, this is an R12 zone. So I would like to tell my board not to get confused between an R12 zone, which was designed for an R12 zone, and during the last master plan, we haven't changed that area to an R75, and therefore actually keep to the R12 standard and the certain aesthetics that an R10 standard comes with. Now, you might disagree with her. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with her, but I understand the direction where she's coming from.
But she didn't indicate it was from an aesthetic standpoint. She indicated
Correct.
specifically three different categories,
Correct.
which my professional testimony is that is wrong.
Okay. Anyone in the public? Okay, seeing none, we'll close to the public. Guys, we're up to the hot part now. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
To approve? Okay, I have a motion from when you go to approve.
Stipulate with all the,
The regular stipulations.
the stairwell, one outside entrance, you're going up the attic, all that.
Yeah. You have no issue with that, right? Mr.
Correct.
And in front of the home being improved 1/3 brick stone.
And then,
Yes.
should we add fans for ventilation?
No, I'll second the motion.
I have a motion from William Gross, and I have a second from Judy Rubio. Madam Secretary?
Mr. Gilly,
Yes.
Mr. Lakewood,
No.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Vivian,
Yes.
Mr. Gross,
Yes.
and Mr. Howard.
No. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Approved. Right. Good night, and good luck. Okay, we're gonna go now, moving forward, we're gonna move into Diamond Communication.
Construction of 140-foot monopole building antennas and related equipment.
Okay, good evening. My name is Judy Fairweather. I'm here on behalf of Diamond Communication and Verizon. As was just read to you, we're here proposing a 140-foot pole, monopole, to replace the temporary pole that is currently on the site. I do have a host of witnesses, but tonight I'm going to start with my radio frequency engineer and have him explain what Verizon has proposed and why. If that's okay with you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, that's okay, but before you continue, I just want to give you a little bit of a schedule of what we're gonna do tonight.
Sure.
Okay? The time is now, 8:05. We will assess it, we normally take a break at 9 o'clock. At that time, we'll assess to see where you're up to with your testimony, if we should continue for another half hour, or if we should postpone it for the following month for another hearing, because we do have some more applications tonight, and we have to move the calendar.
Understood.
And if that's okay with you, we will keep on moving.
Absolutely,
Okay.
and I'm thrilled to at least have an hour.
Excuse me?
I said yes, and I'm thrilled to at least have an hour.
You got it.
Okay, sounds great. David?
Thank you, go ahead.
Sir, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Would you give us your full name and spell your last?
Sure. It's David Stern, S-T-E-R-N.
David, can I have your educational professional background?
Sure. My name is David Stern. I'm a principal in the firm of VCOM, V-COMM Telecommunications Engineering, located at 2147 U.S. Highway 27 in Edison, New Jersey. I have a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from the University of Illinois and 38 years experience in the field of radio frequency communications and radio frequency communication safety. I worked for Motorola Communications in Chicago in the cellular engineering group for 6 years. I worked for Cellular One of New Jersey for 7 years as Director of Engineering, responsible for the Central New Jersey Cellular System and the Philadelphia Cellular System, which is today part of the AT&T network. 25 years ago, with a partner, we formed the firm of VCOM Telecommunications Engineering, providing wireless engineering services to the commercial wireless carriers as well as public safety. I've been approved as an expert in the field of radio frequency communications and radio frequency safety for more than 200 boards in the state of New Jersey, including this board. And I've also been approved in the Superior Court of Ocean County in their criminal division as an expert witness.
So I offered David as my expert witness in radio frequency engineering.
Yes, and I believe that you were here once before.
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm going
Hasn't
to
changed since last time. No.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand this over to David, and I'm going to ask him to explain to the board what Verizon has proposed, what's existing there now, and why we need what we need. Okay? and I'm going to sit down all day to talk.
Go right ahead. Enjoy the show.
Thank you, Ms. Fairweather, appreciate your time. Verizon Wireless is here to basically make permanent the installation that was temporarily installed. A temporary installation was installed at this location at 655 Squonkam Road last year, March. This site is known as the Squonkam Road site. The temporary facility was erected last March at the request of both, and this is coming from information given to me by Verizon Wireless. The request was made by the mayor of Lakewood and the police chief of Lakewood to please increase capacity of the Verizon Wireless network in Lakewood as soon as possible. Verizon Wireless responded with two temporary facilities, one located here at the Jersey Central Maintenance Yard, another one that wound up at Georgian Court University on their property. Those sites were installed and provided additional capacity to the Verizon Wireless network and to the citizens of Lakewood Township, New Jersey. Verizon Wireless has the requisite licenses by the FCC, 700 megahertz license, 800 megahertz license, a PCS, which is 1900 megahertz, and AWS, which is 2100 megahertz, and is still working with the FCC on getting a license in the 3.7 gigahertz band. If you've heard my testimony before, we've talked about that the network has migrated to a 4G technology over the last half dozen years, with all the voice traffic moving over to the data network called VoLTE, Voice over LTE, long-term evolution, where the voice is now operating on the data network. If you were to have a landline phone coming from Verizon over Fios or from a cable company over cable, it's called Voice over IP. That is the same technology Verizon now uses for all of the voice traffic. So it is no longer the old 2G, 1G, 3G networks. It's now the 4G network for voice. And right now, over 90% of the voice traffic on the Verizon network is on their 4G data network. I listed before the different frequency bands that Verizon Wireless has. We refer to the 700 and 800 megahertz bands as low band, and PCS and AWS as high band. 80% of Verizon Wireless's capacity on the network is in the high band spectrum. Only 20% is in the 700 and 800 megahertz, just because of the volume of spectrum the FCC has gotten. Physics says that the PCS and AWS does not go as far as the low band, and it's about half. So given the same parameters on a site, antenna height above ground, the same power, a PCS and AWS site will cover about half the territory that a 700 and 800 megahertz system will cover. So we've been designing the systems for the last almost 10 years now, 15 years now, as for PCS and AWS, with 700, 800 megahertz providing overlay coverage. The real bulk of the network coverage and capacity is carried on by these high band frequencies. Just to put it into perspective, over 60% of U.S. households and in the state of New Jersey only have a wireless phone, and 80% of all the 911 calls made in the state of New Jersey now are from wireless devices. So there's a significant reliance upon the wireless network. We've talked about in the past, in Lakewood Township, when COVID hit, we had a lot of traffic on the network, and it increased substantially the amount of data being used in Lakewood. One of the things that we looked at is that the Lakewood Township area is part of the Philadelphia metropolitan area for Verizon Wireless in the network analysis. And when they looked at the top 20 sites in the Philadelphia metro system, which includes Center City, Philadelphia, 10 of the top 20 sites were the sites in Lakewood. So the data traffic being carried by the Verizon Wireless network in Lakewood was equivalent to what's being carried in Center City from a broad traffic standpoint. So there was a very high need to get more capacity into this network. We've taken advantage of all of the different technologies that are available to us, all the different frequency bands that are available to us, and at this point, the network was still needed additional capacity, and at that point, the only way to get more capacity into the system is to put more sites into the system. My first exhibit, Mark, is A1?
Yes.
And then David, please explain, after Mark is going to put it up, what it is and who did he with, okay?
Sure. Exhibit A1 is entitled Self-Help Partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless, existing approved and proposed Verizon sites in and around Lakewood Township, New Jersey. This board was prepared under my jurisdiction. It is a roadmap of northern Lakewood and southern Howell Townships with Route 9 just to the off-center to the left, and Squampum Road going diagonally from the center out to the upper right-hand corner, turning into Lakewood Farmingdale Road when it reaches Howell Township.
Do we have that in our package?
No, you don't. So this is just a map just to show you the sites. We already have the sites on the other coverage plots that we provided, but this just gives you an idea where the sites are. All right, so I'm going to walk from that right now. All right. All right, so in the center, we have our site at the 526 Squampum Road is our proposed Squampum site. Currently, we have there today a temporary ballast mount monopole that is in place there today, providing coverage and capacity to the area. Going to the north, we have our Howell 4 site. The Howell 4 site is an existing electric transmission tower. That site was recently replaced, so it's now on a pole-style transmission tower just north of Lakewood. Coming down to the east of this area, we have our East Lakewood site, which is on the existing water tank located, located at 944 Ridge Avenue in Lakewood, and that's the 100-foot water tower. Then we come back around, we have our Lakewood Central site. The Lakewood Central site is located at 2220 East 4th Street, and that's a 67-foot building. Coming all the way down to the bottom here, we have at the south end of downtown Lakewood, we have our OCC Lexington Avenue site. That is a monopole located in another JCP&L property. I remember doing the zoning hearing for that when it was still a guide tower on top of the building years ago, and we got the approval for that. That is that particular site, Lexington Avenue, is the dominant server today in most of Lakewood, between the Howell border and the south end of downtown Lakewood. That is the dominant server out here. Coming over to the left, we have the temporary ballast mount monopole located at Georgetown University. And then we have to the north of Lakewood, right next to Route 9, at the border of Howell, we have our North Lakewood site. That's an existing electric transmission tower. That particular facility is being deactivated, and we have recently received approval just into the Howell Township area, in the Howell Township of Route 9, our North Lakewood Reload, which is a new monopole along Route 9, just north of the Lakewood border. And there are 3 cellular facilities located on the electric transmission lines, both east and west of Route 9, that are being deinstalled and moved over to the new monopole along Route 9.
You have Route 9 established now?
Yes, I do. It's located at 6825 Highway 9, and that's behind, there's a Greek diner there that's been abandoned for a while. It's one of the very back of that property. Athena Diner. Athena Diner.
Okay.
So it's going behind the Athena Diner.
Yeah.
Several hundred feet behind.
So it's right in the Howell border.
Yes.
Right. What? No, you go Howell. Right, it's right over there with the River, the old diner that's shut down.
Right. and it's going in the property behind it. It's on the big, it's a big property, and it's going in the back of that property.
It's a monopole or?
It's a monopole,
It's a
yeah.
monopole. And so you're taking all the ones that are now on the high tension wire?
Yes.
You moved it over there?
Yes, and that application was done by Diamond also, so that was a Diamond application.
Why are they coming off the high tension?
Just so you know, I'm gonna talk about that right now. We do have an expert from Diamond who's gonna talk more specifically about the details. But there are issues with those power towers with regards to structural, as well as being in, let me say it the right way now. There is special flood hazard area, and right now we can't get any permits to do any work on that power line in that area. So it's from Route 9 all the way to Swanton Road. All those towers all fall under that same issue, and the expert from Diamond will testify specifically about this.
Yeah, we're going to have an environmental engineer to testify to that, and he's trying to answer questions now, but continue with RF. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have two other sites coming. The other site, the first site is our Lakewood downtown site. The Lakewood downtown site is 550th Avenue. That was filed this past Friday. So I know that is going to, it just started the front door here in the township.
So we're going to see you again?
Yes, that will. And then finally, I know there's an application in preparation now to file to make permanent also the Georgian Fort temporary site, also to make that a permanent site. And that should be coming in the next month or so, into the front door. So those are the sites. So what I want to talk about right now is that we have a capacity situation in Lakewood Township. The dominant servers in the area that Swanton covers today are Lexington Avenue and East Lakewood and the North Lakewood site, the existing North Lakewood site. They provide the coverage into the residential areas and the commercial areas in this part of Lakewood Township, in the northern border of Lakewood Township, up against Howell Township. So in specifics, just so I call it out and do it, we're talking about a gap and it's a gap in service and a gap in coverage. It's a gap in service. And I'll describe that in a second. But the gap here includes Swanton Road for 1.5 miles, both in Lakewood and Howell Township. East County Line Road for 1.5 miles, basically 3/4 mile east and 3/4 mile west of Swanton Road. As well as 1 mile of East Kennedy Boulevard and its different pieces through this part of the area. Brook Road, over here to the east of the site. And I don't know how I pronounce this right. A Rosa Hill, coming from near the site all the way back over towards the vicinity of Brook Road. East End Avenue and Twin Oaks on either side of East County Line Road, up here. The neighborhood around Princeton Avenue, as well as Monmouth Avenue down to 11th Street. That is really kind of circling in that area that was had the capacity issues. Now I want to point out that the capacity issues were not just in that area. This site helps focus a lot of capacity and coverage in this area, but all of the sites in Lakewood were all having issues, all having capacity issues when we got into last March and last April. The way the 4G technology works is all the sites use the same frequency. So as opposed to using frequencies to break up the calls, to figure out which call is what, we use coding. And that coding is then assigned what we call a resource block. The best way to describe it is a bucket. And in that bucket can be bigger or smaller. And a bigger bucket means I have higher speed data for that moment in time. If it's smaller, I've got low speed data. The variables that work into that are really how much power is being used and how far the user's device is from the cell site. The further away from the cell site I get, the lower the speed is I can put in that bucket. The closer I get to the site, the higher the speed in that bucket. The farther away from the site I am, the more power I need to carry that data. The closer I am to the site, the less power. So the idea here is to make the buckets bigger, use less power, more speed, and I can put more traffic through the network.
So a quick
Yes.
question. When you're talking about the radiation as it goes, that's also talking about the health-wise to the people, or not necessarily has nothing to do. The way you're describing is that the farther away they go, it spreads out, and as you reach a certain level. And this is talking about radiation, how much better systems you can have, and better communications, etc. Health-wise, when you're propagating that speed, that radiation, it's also affecting more the people that are closer, or it's not affecting at all, or what happens?
Great question. I'd like to hold that question to the end of my testimony because I have a whole section to discuss those issues. When I really talking about coverage, the RF energy that we will talk about when we get to the RF energy portion of the discussion is really between 0 and 600 feet from the site. Once I'm 600 feet from the site, you can't even measure it anymore from the site. With the tools that we have today to measure those kinds of things. So it's really the coverage. So I'm going to focus on coverage as opposed to the RF energy in and around radio frequency transmitting devices.
Can I just ask a question about the data speeds and everything? Because you've discussed right now in the application, I think 4 different bandwidths that you're planning on using your potential for a 5th.
Yes.
And based on that aggregate of everything, in the area that you would practically serve around this monopole, like, I don't know, it may not be an easy way to calculate this, but how many customers do you think this is going to now be serving because you have installed it, or potential?
I don't know specifically the amount of customers. I don't know what the penetration is of Verizon Wireless into Lakewood to be able to determine that. I know the penetration of wireless Lakewood is at least 100%, if not greater than 100% now, which means at least on average, every person has a wireless device. Certain people don't have wireless devices, that means people carry 2 wireless devices. So it's over 100% penetration.
If the permanent pole is constructed, that's the red spot, right?
Yeah.
What happens to all the other spots, if any? Do they go away? No, they'll still be there.
No, they'll still be there. The idea is to replace the temporary ballast mount monopole with a permanent in-ground built monopole. That's it.
Wait a second, guys, 1 minute, please. Can I just take this in a little different direction? I'd like Mrs. Stern to hear his testimony section by section, segment by segment, and anyone if you have any questions on this particular segment, please write it down, and then you let me know when that segment is over.
Yes.
Please put the questions on it, because we're just going to repeat ourselves, and we're going to get certain answers during that segment, okay? So, if there's any questions, please write the questions down, and when you finish, let me know when that segment is over. Can you ask a question on the segment, and then we'll go to the next segment.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So we're talking about the data system, and we're talking about resource blocks in these buckets. So the idea here is I want to just get through is that the closer the sites are, the less power that I'm using up, which means I have more power to share among more users. And as I'm closer to the site, and closer sometimes can be used, I have better coverage. Maybe not closer, but I have better coverage. Then I can make the data speed on each resource block higher, so I can get more data throughput. So as I move away from the site, so I'm further and further away from the site, as was the case in March of 2020, the areas in northern Lakewood were further away from the existing site. Those areas were dragging down all the other sites because of this I'll call it equation I just described. Resource blocks, the size of those resource blocks being power and proximity and data speed. So as I get further and further away from the existing sites, East Lakewood, Lexington Avenue, and North Lakewood, then the speeds would drop, the power would go up, meaning I couldn't put as much data through the same given amount of spectrum, and I couldn't carry as many users at the same time. So even though I'm using the same spectrum, I can't push it out as fast. I can't use as many users on it because of the way that digital technology works. Now, this has multiplied many times since we came here in 1990s, in the late 1990s, and talked about CDMA. We've done hundreds of times multiple of how big the data is, how many users we can push onto the site. At the same time, 4G worked. So people took up the devices, used the technology, and then it propelled itself forward. So this stuff works, so you can actually use it for different applications. It works great for voice. It does good for all the video applications, for Zoom-like applications. This was technology. So as the network evolved and we got to this point, we saw that in March of 2020, all of that came down as we just did not have enough capacity. We used all the technology that we could do. We pushed all of the spectrum into this thing. As I had discussed previously, one of the things that we didn't have is enough 4G spectrum available because in this community we had 3G technology still being used. That's moving now. The last time I testified here, I talked about the need for 4G phones, for certain 4G phones. They're out there now. They are being sold in Lakewood. So there are 4G phones out there that would meet the criteria that the community, I think, would want. That helps us clear out some of the other spectrum that we haven't cleared up in both PCS and 800 megahertz to get more 4G technology out there. That's the end of that.
Okay. Guys, any questions?
Yes.
Okay, let's start with you. Wait.
Okay, so firstly, and I believe the last time you were here, when it was real crunch time, I think it was it last June or something? July?
Last fall, end of last fall.
And we talked about the enormous buildup of use with phones and everything. Do you have any data showing whether that use is still the same? Because there was every single child who was in school who had a phone and was using it, and that was absorbing a lot of the possible usage from the bucket, as you call it. So has that changed? Do you have any data to show about that?
I do have data. I did not bring that data because I assumed I had a half hour. I apologize. I feel like our engineer put it over here. And I will tell people that I was shocked at the data because I actually said this at the last hearing in the fall. I said my expectation was the public schools open, yeshivas open, and the traffic did not drop at all. The only drop I saw was at the end of March of 2021. That was the only drop I saw. And then it went right back up.
So
Pesach.
So we're in the same place as we were last year. My
Yeah.
wife is still texting like crazy.
It has not dipped. And I definitely got some questions from Verizon. Why hasn't it changed? I said, because, and I teach this to my engineers, I said, the dynamic in a wireless network like this doesn't change unless there's been a dramatic shift in the use of the technology. And in March of 2020, we had a dramatic change in the use of the technology in this area. And that technology use hasn't changed. Something has changed. So the traffic has not dropped. The traffic is now slowly rising again. Where in March of 2020, we had the dramatic rise. Now we just have a steady state rise. But it never dipped back down from September to March. We didn't see a dip.
So the purpose of these towers and the ones that you intend, the ones that you have, the existing ones and the new ones that you plan on putting in, is that to give, as you said, additional power to supply the demand that's existing, and also to cover areas that are not covered presently, the blank areas?
Let me make sure clear.
You said County Road, and you had mentioned.
It's not, I will say, I'll go back to something I testified to in the mid-90s. In the middle of the night, I don't have a coverage problem in Lakewood. I don't have a service problem in the middle of the night. Where there's very little network usage, I have full coverage in Lakewood. This is not in the middle of the night. The gap for us is a gap in service that the temporary tower filled when we put it up last March. It filled a tremendous gap in service. So I don't have a coverage gap, so I can't say, oh, I can't use my phone, it won't work. In the middle of the night, it works. There's no coverage gap.
So is the not working that we're discussing, Is that data meaning somebody downloading video or internet, email, or are we talking plain old 911 calls?
Yes, 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 and yes.
Okay, so the most important thing, because all of this other stuff, and I understand that Verizon is a business, and you guys want to make sure that you can supply to the end user everything that they need. But the most important thing is there a problem presently, the way the towers are set up, with somebody being able to dial 911?
Before these sites went in, yes, and that precipitated the call from the police chief and the mayor to Verizon Wireless, please help. And the police used this technology as the vehicle for their vehicle, the method that they used their mobile data terminals in their car. So their mobile data terminals were not working. The capacity in general was not working. But as I described before, 90% of the Verizon Wireless voice calls today are on the 4G data network. So it impacts voice calls and data sessions for the various things that you just listed before.
So if the purpose of this tower, if this tower would be non-existent and not go from temporary to permanent status, you are testifying that there would be a problem making a 911 call?
Yes.
And as far as the health concerns that one of my colleagues mentioned that you're going to still be discussing?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have a few questions, but more geared to the future. So this poll has to go up based on, in your testimony, based on what the current need for Lakewood is.
Yes.
With regards to the future trajectory of growth, both in terms of Verizon's plans across the country, rolling out 5G, and the next generation, your testimony is that this is going to increase the requirement for more poles?
Right now, the next band for 5G, Verizon has 5G running in some of its bands right now in a limited basis, but they have a band that they're going to dedicate to 5G, which is the 3.7 gigahertz band. Right now, the auction was completed in March of this year, and they're now working with the FCC along with all the other carriers that bid in this auction to obtain the licenses for 3.7 gigahertz, which is not significantly higher. In the major cities, they've deployed 28 gigahertz, which is a much, much smaller footprint site, meaning that it covers a couple hundred feet. So I don't see them deploying that technology outside of the downtown areas of major metro cities for many years to come. But the 3.7 5G, I see that coming over the next 5 years. So all of the existing sites.
So you think that with this poll and the other ones that are currently in the plan and trying to be made permanent, that should be sufficient for the next at least a few years of Lakewood's requirements?
We have other sites that we're looking at now. What I've done is shown you the ones that I know that are coming. We have sites that are further to the east and further to the south and further to the east, further to the west, further to the south, further to the north that are coming. But they're not in this general area. The hope is with the sites that I've pointed out tonight, our downtown Lakewood site, the permanent site at Georgia University and the Squantum site will have put in sufficient capacity in here for the time being. But that doesn't mean it's going to, as we've seen, the network is still growing, but it's now at a much more steady state growth as opposed to what we saw last March.
The fact that Verizon is now marketing a home internet replacement, I don't remember the name of it, but on the 5G network, will that also increase because where they have to gap fill, where they can't deploy Fios?
I don't know specifically. I only know anecdotally that yes to your question. But I'm not an expert.
I'm trying to feel out what your opinion is. Are these going to be enough, or are we talking about more poles in the future?
For right now, for the core of Lakewood, basically between the Howell border and downtown Lakewood, this is what's on the books right now for plans. I don't know of anything else in the northern core of Lakewood that's in the plans.
I guess it depends on if Mr. Flannery has more applications for more densification.
Mr. Stern, the 5G implementation will require new poles
The band that we're looking at now, which I described 3.7, no, they can go on the existing, that can go on the existing poles. If you're talking about the 28 gigahertz that they're deploying in Manhattan and Center City, Philadelphia, that requires a significantly bigger footprint, bigger number of poles to go in. It's a much bigger number. That's why I don't see it. I don't know when I will see it come out to the I'll call it suburban areas of New Jersey. There are plans out there to do more microcells. I know that there are agencies within and without Verizon Wireless and the other carriers that are looking to do more microcells, but those are really to supplement what's going on in 4G with the intent of putting 5G, more of the frequency band that I discussed, but not the 28 gig. At some point in time, yes. I don't know when that'll be, but I'm assuming that it'll be a while before they come to a community like this and try to put 28 gigahertz in there, because the number of sites that we're seeing in Center City is like it's every 300 to 400 feet. So you're basically talking like every third or fourth light pole that they're putting those on.
To follow up on a question that Mr. Morse just asked, is Verizon familiar that the growth that Lakewood is in the middle of, where a lot of people from New York are just moving down here and more housing is coming in?
Yes.
And therefore, are you taking that into account?
Yes.
In your projections?
Yes.
So you want me to come in? Okay. Would you find Lakewood unique in the usage of versus any other community around the area? Are we
yes.
within par? And why would you say that? Is it for a college town versus Rutgers, New Brunswick?
I think it has to do with and this is all anecdotal, and I think I discussed this at length at the last hearing that I testified in for the Dallas Mount Tower behind the bowling alley. We talked about the uniqueness of this community in the amount of landline, and this is, like I said, this is anecdotal. I don't have description, I just have what I've learned over the years, is there was a very low take rate on 4G data. There was a very low take rate on wired data, so getting data from Fios and from cable. So when March 2020 hit, there was an instantaneous need for a lot of data.
Yeah,
and that changed. That was a dynamic change.
Correct, because of the COVID hit, everyone ended up at home, studying at home, schooling at home,
and working at home,
and working at home. All that happened, of course, the United States. That happened all over.
Yes.
Of course, the world, I should say that.
Yes.
But in 21, today, July 26, 21, how do we compare to any other town, city in the area?
From a density standpoint, your usage looks an awful lot like Center City, Philadelphia. That's how much use is being done in Lakewood right now. And that was what I said to you at the beginning here. I said, when we look at the top 20 cell sites in the Verizon Wireless network, including Center City, including Cherry Hill, including downtown Atlantic City, 10 of the 20 biggest usage sites are in Lakewood. And those are these sites here, plus Mass Avenue and a couple other sites out here. These are the most used sites in the Verizon Wireless network in the Philly metro area.
Go ahead.
So you mentioned...
Right away, Judith.
So you spoke a lot about data. You're going to be upgrading this like strictly for data or also for voice, because the average person driving down the street can say, oh, I got better, I got better signal, or this is strictly because your bandwidth is maxed out on the data?
I'll rephrase it again. 90% of the voice calls on the Verizon Wireless network today are on the data network using voice over IP. It is the same network. It is the same hardware, the same antennas are all processing voice over. So it's all voice over IP, which we call voice over LTE or 4G. So it's on the 4G data.
So the average cell phone user, are they going to get a better signal as well, or that's not going to change?
Yes.
That's going to.
They get they'll keep what they got with this particular site. They're going to keep what we've already put there.
not sure if this is part of the segment or not, but the height of the new tower versus the temporary tower is, we'll get there?
That's the next section.
Anyone else in this segment?
Just a question, I know you're here representing Verizon Wireless, but is there any data on other networks and their towers and how that's going to tie into this tower with Verizon tower?
I have not investigated the other wireless carriers and what their networks are doing.
I can tell you from a legal standpoint, antitrust rules and things, and protecting consumers stop all the carriers from kind of getting together and deciding things. So all the information on the carriers is pretty much separate, except if they can go on and look at the towers that are FAA approved and things like that. They don't work together because of governmental issues.
So one company would not be able to piggyback off of another person's tower?
Oh, no, they can do that in the shared towers, but in regard to sharing information, like AT&T and Verizon don't share what they're building out, when they're building out. But if you look at the towers that exist, you can see that there are many carriers on them. They all have master agreements with each other, so they can go on each other's towers.
So on the towers that you're showing here, are these strictly Verizon Wireless towers or are these shared towers?
They're not strictly Verizon Wireless towers. Verizon Wireless, the other carriers are on a number of these same sites. The Lexington Avenue site is a multi-carrier site. The North Lakewood site is a multi-carrier site. Hollow 4 is a multi-carrier site. So those ones are all have all three carriers or two carriers on them.
Are there towers in any areas that you could piggyback off of as opposed to going up the tower?
The answer is no.
Okay. One more?
Just one more, yeah. Well, I know you mentioned you've been in 200 wards and so on, so you know a lot of different municipalities and townships. Lakewood compared to the other townships having 1, 2, 3, 4, say 8, 7, or 8 towers. Is that typical for a 25-mile radius? Is that more or less the same?
The density is I would say is a little bit bigger than most of the, I'll call it this size community. It's nowhere near what I've seen in Jersey City and in Newark and some of the big communities up in North Jersey. They are much bigger densification as far as the number of sites, but this is probably equivalent to, it's even bigger than Atlantic City, and it looks a lot more like the sites in and around Center City, not Center City itself, but the area surrounding Center City.
Mr. Stern, will this tower be allowed to co-locate with other carriers?
I will say that I'm not the expert to answer that question, but it is being designed to be a co-location model.
Let's move on.
Okay. Let's get to some of the questions about the antenna height. The antenna height at the existing ballast mount monopole, I believe the top of the antenna there is at 151 feet. The top of this site, and our antennas the center of our antennas are 148 feet above ground level. This site, the top of the lightning rod is at 150 feet. The top of the monopole is at 145 feet. And the center of our antennas are at 140 feet. So our antennas are actually going to drop a couple of feet below what they're at on the existing ballast mount monopole. We'll go down a little bit, a couple of feet.
Do you have an exhibit to describe what you?
We have an expert that will do that probably the next hearing, talk about that in much more detail. Okay. All right, so let's talk about other structures. Just so I make sure I cover it in part of the RF section. Just to put into the record, there is no FAA lighting required on this tower, and Verizon Wireless will be using Verizon Fiber for interconnecting this site to the rest of the Verizon Wireless network. This technology is permitted, I believe, on town land in the M1 zone, The M1 zone is south of the Lexington site. We do have one site in the M1 zone, that's our Mass Avenue tower, that is one of the tallest towers in Ocean County, at over 260 feet to the top of the tower. It's a guide tower, and Verizon Wireless is on that site. And that site does not cover this area, so we don't have any permitted sites. The next tallest structures, as I alluded to, are the electric transmission towers, approximately 1/4 mile north of the proposed facility. As I described, they are not available due to the special flood hazard areas, and we have somebody coming to talk about that at another hearing. The other site is there is an existing radio communications tower at the First Energy substation, almost a mile northeast of the proposed location, and we have an expert who's going to talk about that we could not get on that particular site. The person we have from Diamond has actually worked at least 4 times, including last week, to see if we could get co-location access onto that radio communications tower, and there is no ability to access that tower for a number of reasons. But it has been investigated at least 4 times in the last 10 years by various wireless carriers to co-locate on that tower. At this point, we cannot use it. And that concludes my RF portion of the testimony. The next session, we talk about RF energy and to answer Mr. Mancali's question.
Is this tower going to be camouflaged?
No. What was the question?
Is it going to be camouflaged?
Can it be if decides that whoever is exposed to residential?
So you can please say a little louder.
Is it possible to be camouflaged? You know, I don't know how the meeting's going to go but it is close to residential. Is that
Diamond has built tree towers and
Right.
other type of structures.
I don't even mean that far.
Parents, we can
Yes, Diamond has built tree towers and other structures, and that absolutely would be considered if that's what the board would like, certainly.
Okay. No, it's kind of close to residential. There's actually new residents right in there. That was approved just this site.
Sure.
All right.
Mr. Chair, so how far is the closest residential and the future residential units?
I don't know, and we have another expert that's going to testify those kind of questions.
Yeah, we have a planner who will come and testify, who will show an aerial, will show photos in, and answer all those questions.
Good, thank you.
I just want to be sure it's only 50 feet away.
Right?
This is only 50 feet.
Okay, go ahead. Anyone else? Any further questions? Okay, move on.
As part of our preparation for this hearing, under my direction, we prepared a radio frequency emissions report. New York Estimates, it says New York Estimates Limited Partnership is with Celco Partnership, EBA Verizon Wireless, Bronken Road, site number NJ 2220, 655 Squonkam Road, our permission study, dated June 22nd, 2020, and was presented in my direction. That should have been part of the package. What we do here is analyze the site with respect to the FCC's rules, regulations, and guidelines with these facilities, and identify whether or not the site complies with the FCC rules regarding facilities like this. In this case, we applied the 4 frequency bands that we described: 700, 800, 1900, and 2100 megahertz. We then set the power to maximum. Usually most of these cell sites do not operate at maximum power, but we set them at maximum. And then we set the measurement level where we wanted to measure the RF energy at 36 feet above ground level, which would be the equivalent of somebody standing on the roof of a 3-story building. So we said that would be so there's a possibility due to proximity of where we are that somebody could stand on the 3-story building and be under the RF coverage of that building. So we set that as our standard for this particular site, as opposed to we normally do it at 6 feet above ground level. Here we did 36 feet above ground level. When we take all that into account and apply the FCC's standards, we find that the RF energy, in using the standard of 100% as the maximum for the general public, we're at approximately 0.9% of the FCC standard, which is 109 times below the FCC standard for radio frequency energy. And we do that measurement from 0 to 600 feet. At about 600 feet, we don't even, the number is infinitesimally small when you try to calculate that percentage number. It's usually, it's a decimal point followed by 5 or 6 zeros and a 1 once you get up to about 600 feet from a facility like this. And that's typical for a facility like this. And once you're above 30 feet above ground level, these are categorically exempt from the FCC's rules, but we make sure to ensure that they are compliant with the FCC's rules. The 1%, so people have some idea of what 1% is. 1% would be the amount of energy I would measure in this room due to the fluorescent lights that create RF energy as well. So that's about what we would measure here if we brought a radio frequency emissions probe in here and measured the energy here. We'd be about 1% turn the lights off that would go. So that's typical. The other thing that creates a lot of RF energy in a standard home would be the refrigerator compressor. Usually generates between 4 and 5% of the FCC's number for RF energy. So this is significantly below that. And I've been asked the question, what is really high? Well, you're talking tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of times higher is what we would consider energy that would be way above the FCC standards that we would not want to be, in the presence of that kind of thing. So we are hundreds of thousands of times below the energy for a facility like this. But we are compliant by a factor of over 100 with the FCC's rules. One of the things I talked about before is the biggest contributor to the experience of RF energy is the wireless device. That number that I gave you, that 1% number for the cell site, it's many times that number for the wireless device itself. So one of the things we talked about before was in the device itself, I want the power to be lower. Remember we talked about the buckets and we want lower power so we get more users. So one of the ways we get more users is to make sure we keep a lower power. And we now have multi-stepping power amplifiers in these devices so the power can go much slower. So as you get further and further away from the site, one of the things you feel is the phone getting warmer, especially when you're in an area with really bad coverage, you'll feel the site getting warmer, and that's the transmitter in this thing trying to get back to the cell site. So that means it's pushing out a lot of RF power. If you're feeling the phone get warm, that means it's doing a lot of RF power as well. And that concludes my EMF.
So can I just do quick follow-ups? So what you're saying is that by constructing this additional tower, you are decreasing the RF energy that people around Lakewood are going to be feeling on themselves because the cell phones don't have to work so hard to get back to the tower.
Exactly.
So, and how close to the tower is it dangerous, for exposed long-term radiation?
Let me put it this way. You can live right next to the tower, and the number that I gave you, 109 times below, or 90.9%, that's in the immediate vicinity. Usually that number is between 100 and 200 feet from the site. That's the peak. And that's measured at 36 feet above ground level. So you have to go up in a cherry picker using a probe that measures these types of signals. You would see the site on the air in the middle of the afternoon when everybody gets home from school and everybody's on their system, everybody's on their computers, everybody's using their phones. At that point in time, you would see 0.9% in a cherry picker 36 feet above ground level. That number is usually locked. So what? 1 or 200 feet away. Once 200 feet away, that's where you see that peak. Anything else differing from that area is going to be lower than that peak. That's the peak. It'll drop down. It'll be the low power. Yeah. If you go further, closer.
And that 0.9% is considered the safe further exposed for a long
The FCC says 100%. For people that don't know what RF energy is, they want you to be at 100% or lower. So we're 109 times below that number right now. So where would you see 100%? If you took the cherry picker and you climbed the tower and went up to the antennas. Then you'd see 100%.
So by, in other words, immediate proximity is where the long term.
To the antenna. You have to be, basically what I tell my engineers when I go to rooftop, do not hug the antenna.
You mentioned before about the same RF that comes out of a person's home. Is that regulated by the government as far as what?
Absolutely,
And
yes.
can that be harmful as well? Is that like what you're comparing it as if I was standing next to a tower and getting the same type of RF energy?
You asked two questions. So you are getting the same RF energy. It's exactly the same RF. It isn't different. It's the same frequency. It's the same coding. It's all the same RF. But there's a higher level of RF coming from the phone because of proximity. You have the transmitter within inches of your head. You put the transmitter over by the dais, and that RF is going to be much, much smaller. It's going to be much smaller.
Just for perspective, so if the guy's wearing headphones,
It's less. But if he's wearing a Bluetooth headset, then you have a little bit of RF coming out of the Bluetooth. If you sleep with the baby monitor next to your head, you're getting RF energy from the baby monitor. All of these things produce a little bit of RF. So it is the same RF energy, but using this, or using this, and using a Bluetooth in your head, which is what I usually wind up doing, is a Bluetooth here and this phone sitting here, I'm getting a lot more RF energy than I am from the cell site covering me if I was standing 100 feet away from the cell site.
I'm assuming you're saying that because in case residents are scared of the energy that it's giving off, you're saying that if they have a phone next to them, it's going to be the same if they're 500 feet away.
Yes.
And if they're...
Right, but if they're 200 feet away, the power coming out of the phone is significantly less than they were standing a mile away from the cell site.
Because it's pulling less energy.
Because it's pulling less energy. The phone is. The cell site's going to be lower, but the phone is going to be higher because you're further away from the cell site.
You said that the amount of RF that the person is exposed to is the same amount as what we're being exposed to these fluorescent lights when you're a distance of how far away from the tower?
From the distance that I described when we did the calculation, 100 feet away from the site, at ground level, you're experiencing the same amount of RF energy as you are from the fluorescent light.
9 o'clock, we're going to take a 10-minute break.
Do you have more testimony, sir? Direct?
Are you done with your testimony?
I'm done.
You're done. Okay. Good.
And I know that there is an attorney here representing other adjoining property owners.
Right.
Who I presume is going to want to ask questions of Mr. Stern.
Okay.
So will that happen tonight, and then Mr. Stern won't have to go back into the night? Is that the way we're going to handle it?
We can do that if that's fine. But this is what I'd like to do. At 9:30, I would like to move on with the agenda. Okay? I guess you're the attorney for the objectors. Okay. Would you have enough time till 9:30? So he has to come back in. Okay.
Sorry, I apologize, Mr. Chairman. As a courtesy of the board, I don't know if you want me to get started and ask questions. It's not sure. I'm good to present.
No, well, let's stick with our witness right now, okay? And then we'll continue when we come back with the second witness.
Thank you.
get that yet. Get that.
Beyond that is that once
Then it became actually recognizing recovery until like 30 years. Then it was not going on the street. That's actually just like okay. They have development now. Those guys are now bigger. They can
you know, the guy who's holding the hours, 200 feet up from getting in front of representative for us, and people like Flush that you know, I'm going to my friend. First, I didn't tell him. First, they had to get reelected. First, got reelected. No, but he was that. He had a lot of talk about. But let's talk about this. It doesn't seem like not following on the table. And then you said planning board last time involved. The point is nobody's going to. I'm not going to say. It's not like they're going to get Terrible what you're doing. Move it to a forest. We'll have a service for that, let the trees go. You don't put it near people. Why not my window? I hope God puts it in front of the backyard. That's what I'm saying. You might do a house, you should do it. Oh, boy, I'll see what you like. That's the way I'm so horrified, friend. I can't believe that you want this. And you in a forest, not near us. Terrible. I can't believe that you're doing this to our community. In a forest. Spare us. You know why the children are afraid of it? I come back at the window, right? I stay in my house to show you how close it is. You should all be blessed that you can be home in your house. God, please listen to me. I'm right back to go see
Jeff once told me, Jeff Steger attached an advantage.
Terrible, I'm so afraid of my life.
Someone came to me and said, Jeff said, your picture's on the wall.
No, I'm sorry, they're terrible what they're doing. They're doing terrible things. Ruining this community. I hope you do like that. I hope everybody has to go to the house.
Was the origin King?
Let's hear from those two applicants.
John Franklin up there?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's a church. You grab that case. I wish you come find out and see that.
It's like 95,000. What party is it? They had a whole talk about this.
I've never called 911 without something.
They're not going to open for this. No, they're coming back.
Right here, on Randolph Road.
No.
I said 1,000. If you go to Ocean County Park, it's gonna be away from.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was no one here because no one built the house. I'm saying, I took a beautiful picture because we were
This does not testify that he advised his neighbors and, conditions both do not, my house is.
The question is, I just see the people come out or not? Like, 24
We're all here? Yeah, we're all here. Okay. Let's move on. You realize you have 10 minutes left.
I know that's why I stated earlier, you know, just to wait and we can start the next meeting, you know. I mean, it just seems, that's why
I don't think the 10 minutes is going to accomplish much.
I don't think so either, that's why I
Right,
suggested.
so we're just gonna cut for the night then. And unless your other witness is gonna be 10 minutes.
I'm afraid not.
I'm afraid not. So if that's the case, then why don't we adjourn this, for the night? And we'll, the next day, Franny, when's the next?
September 13th.
September 13th.
So no further notice.
No further notice.
Can I,
Yes.
I'm sorry, can I censor my appearance, just for the record?
Yes.
Sure. So my name's Rob Simon, I'm an attorney with Harold Law.
Can you get we need one in the mic? Hey, Mike. Oh, you got a mic, I just see it. Sorry, go ahead. Okay.
So good evening, my name is Rob Simon, I'm an attorney with Harold Law in Warren, New Jersey. I'm here on behalf of J.R. Swan LLC, who's the owner of 685 Swan Road, that's block 172, lot 9, which is the property immediately to the north.
Okay. So we will see you back September 13th? Okay. On whole business, Franny?
Yes.
Whole business, we'll go right into it.
Double check.
Let's double check the calendar.
September 13th.
Okay.
Great, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Good night. Before I move on, can I have a motion to adjourn, appeal number 4160, Dodge Communications, September 13th? No. Okay, Kelly, can I have a second on that one? Please adjourn. Wait, Schinger, Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Yes.
Okay, Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Anyone that's here from 4169 Communications, this application will continue to be heard on September 13th under old business, so it will be the first on the queue next month. Take care. Moving forward, we're going to start 4173 Liberty Holding.
Bill number 4173, Dewey Holdings, lot 48, lot 78, RM zone, to install 4 townhomes.
Before we start, I speak about the notices. A lot of people illegal do not receive notice. A lot of people illegal, that's also included, do not receive notice.
Thank you.
If you're in a town, if you're in a townhouse development or a condominium development, the applicant has the right of the
Jerry, one second, please. Can you back there, can you close the doors?
If you're in a townhouse or condominium development, the statute says the applicant must notify, like, the association, and that takes care of all the townhouses.
So the association is not told, is notified either as well?
I would think so, but we did check on the mailings. The applicant did notify the homeowners association. Yeah, and that takes care of the condominium, or the townhouses, whatever it is. So there was proper notice. Now, the fact that maybe Mr. and Mrs. Jones didn't get a specific notice, they should talk to the homeowners association. Because the notice did go to the,
Thank you.
to the office building. You're welcome.
Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Adam Pfeffer, to behalf the applicant, to be Holdings LLC. The board may be somewhat familiar with this application. We've been before the board a few years ago, actually, 2011 was the first application for a bifurcated use variance. They came back a few years later for an amended application. We're now before the board now for a site plan to construct 4 townhouses on the property. I do have, just for the record, we did send out all notices in accordance with the township certified list, in accordance with the law. Quick answer, Mr. Flannery. At this time, I'm going to just ask after he's sworn in, the board accepts him as an expert in his field, so that's Mr. Flannery to mark all the exhibits that we're going to be relying on.
Mr. Flannery, do you swear or affirm that the sculptures will be done?
I do. Brian Flannery, Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer, professional planner. The application is indicated is for site plan for 4 townhouses. I have 4 exhibits, which have been submitted to the board. On the easel to the left up top, marked A1 is the tax map that shows the subject property, highlighted in yellow. A2 is an aerial which shows, again, the subject property, which is surrounded by similar type townhouses. A3 is the cover sheet of the application shown, which shows the 4 townhouses along with the associated information. And A4 is the layout and dimension plan showing 4 townhouses similar to the surrounding townhouses. As Adam indicated, this application.
You just want to make sure you have the same one time if I'm looking at it.
Is that new license plan, this is number, number
21143.
43 dated 3/22/21?
Correct.
Can you identify again A3? What is it?
A3 is the cover sheet of the set of plans that Mr. Halberstam just indicated in sheet 1 of 18.
I got one of 19.
Thanks.
Dated July 6th. Signed July 16th.
The only thing that changed on the cover sheet was they added an extra sheet. So it's 1 of 19, and the layout dimension plan is sheet 3 of 19.
Got it. Okay.
So as Adam has indicated, this is a project that's been before the board before. Initially, it was here as application 3773, and it was a 6-unit apartment building. The use variance was granted for the 6-unit apartment building. The applicant came back with the site plan application for that, and the neighbors in the adjoining associations were not happy. The applicant met with those neighbors, and the neighbors said, why are you doing apartments? Why don't you do the same thing we have? The applicant said, fine. He withdrew that application. We came back just for the use on September 9th of 2019, and we're granted approval for the use only, a bifurcated application for 4 townhouses. We're here this evening for the site plan approval for those 4 townhouses, consistent with what was shown at the time we came previously.
The townhouses consistent with what's there now?
The townhouses are consistent with what's there. There's no outside entrance to the basement. There'll be no basement rentals. As the adjoining property was approved by on an application by Rabbi Kinerick many years ago, and he indicated that the basements are just there for not for rental.
For the home use.
Yes, for their own use.
There won't be an original condition with
I remember it clearly too.
There won't be be any outside entrance to the basement?
No outside entrance to the basement.
How many feet out of the ground
It's like 4 steps out of the ground. And they're consistent, they're gonna be part of a homeowners association, they're consistent with the neighbors. The board has a homeowners association and will make sure that these are not rented basements.
This is going to the same envelope as that other homeowner association?
Yes,
So it's all one?
yes, yes.
Brian, how many spots are there?
10 additional parking spaces were added.
But 2 of them are not on the property.
That is correct.
So.
But they're being added to the association, so we've added.
I'm just thinking of things, Mr. Chairman.
Can you give us, I didn't hear. Could you-
Well, what's occurring here, as I guess my testimony, is the parking area that's adjoining the townhouses and the homeowner association to the west of us is being extended. And by extending it, there's a couple parking spaces that, one of which is completely on the adjoining property, and the second one which is shared on the adjoining property. But they are part of the homeowner association. The homeowner association is going to maintain the parking area. Nobody's really going to know that line is there. Nobody's going to care.
Right, but it's not, my point really more is that currently what are those 2 spots? They're not 2 spots that are from the other.
No, it's not 2 spots from the other. There's a turnaround there.
Okay.
So right now, those spaces aren't there. People are going to turn around. Now they're going to turn around further on into our property, so they don't need the room for the turnaround or the setback.
So there's 2 new spaces for the HOA.
Well, there's 10 new spaces for the HOA. The HOA maintains all of the parking. Both the existing and the new ones.
How many spots are required for 4 townhouses?
Well, these 4 townhouses, since they don't have rentable basements, they go by RSI at 2.1 units per townhouse. So it's 9 and change, and we're giving 10.
So you give me an extra half space.
Yes.
Very generous.
So there won't be any parking spaces on this property. There'll only be the.
There's 8 that are totally on this property. One that's split by the property line.
2 per house.
Just slightly in excess of 2 per house. What's that?
There's 8 on the property. Where's the other 2?
The other 2 are where the prior parking lot ended. We've extended that parking lot, eliminated the turnaround. One is completely on the homeowner association property, and one is splitting the property line with the homeowner association property.
Wait. Are there 10 new parking spaces on HOA property, or is there 8 on the private property that you're developing?
There's going to be 10 new parking spaces,
right,
all on HOA property. The HOA, this property is becoming part of the HOA. So there's currently a lot line that's going to be meaningless in the future because it's all part of the HOA property.
These are townhouses.
These are townhouses.
Are they going to get a deed for their property?
It's being done as a condominium ownership, so they're going to have a deed for their property, but not for the parking area.
All right. Sorry.
So, looking at the report, and hopefully it gets simpler now. Terry indicates the prior approvals and all the information that we just did. He goes into the density, and there's 2 different density numbers, one before NJDOT dedication, one after the NJDOT dedication. But it's the same 4 townhouses that were the bifurcated use was granted for. The New Jersey DOT right-of-way dedication is something that this applicant did to be consistent with what the adjoining homeowner association applicant did. The DOT normally does not request the right-of-way dedication, but in this case, to be consistent with the other application, this applicant did that. That gives you the difference in the density numbers that are in Terry's report. So we're here in the RM zone, which allows multifamily at 15 units per acre or townhouses at 8 per acre. And we're in at 13.29 dwelling units per acre. for townhouses, but these aren't the typical townhouses. The townhouses also say you can do it at 16 per acre, but you count the basements. Here we have no basements, but the bottom line is we're consistent with the other people. The applicant has reached an agreement with the homeowners association. We become part of the homeowners association. So we're just here this evening for the 4 townhouses that we showed you. We're back now with the site plan, giving the specific details and the engineering.
So the house itself is as big as the other ones that are currently there, or the actual home?
The actual home, as you can see from the layout plan, is a little bit bigger, but certainly consistent. The width is consistent, the length is a couple feet bigger.
And the homeowners association was okay with it? And they were
Yes.
okay with it? They saw the
But
size and...
yes, as part of resolution compliance, obviously we got to provide the board engineer with all the homeowner association documents, all that other information, and yes, we have no approval if the homeowner association doesn't like it.
Wait, I thought you said that you...
The applicant does have the letter. We haven't asked the engineer to review that because that's normally a resolution compliance detail.
Wait a minute, is there a letter? Is there a letter from the HOA saying, yes, you can join the party, or not?
There's an agreement between the applicant and the HOA, it's in writing, we can provide it to the board, prove it, we will provide it to the board.
You don't have it here this evening?
I don't have it this evening.
I'm sorry?
I don't have it here. And there's certain things in the application that we obviously, besides for adding into the HOA, parking, there's a room that has to be opened up. So there's a lot of acts that we have to work with them. We didn't come this far, this application, before having something in agreement between the HOA.
And it's part of the resolution, it has to be part of the HOA.
Well, I think you should see it before resolution compliance.
Excuse me?
But if the board acts favorably on the application, we can provide it to the board in advance so that they can see it before they vote on the resolution.
You can get it to me later this week.
Yes, prior to the resolution being acted on, we will get it, we'll provide it if there are any issues, we'll address it.
Jerry, I don't feel comfortable with this application. I don't think it's a resolution compliant.
No, it's not.
I think it's something that the board, at least me, for myself, I'd like to know what they want, and then I want to compare it to what they're presenting and seeing if it works or doesn't work.
Well, I'm surprised we don't have the written agreement here.
I don't know
But there's testimony from Mr. Flannery and his representation from Mr. Pepper that it's in existence, and I'll get it.
No, what does it say?
That should have been part of the, that should have, I don't know what they're applying, what it's leaving.
See, Jerry, some of the relief may be relevant.
It's a good point. There might be some conditions in it that are important.
But you did not.
The applicant has a copy of the email to you now, and also read these items into the record, if that's okay.
You're going to email it to me now?
Yeah, I'm just going to read it in, and I'll send it right over to you.
I think we need to confiscate his phone and just...
I'm going to skip the whereas, but there were now therefore consideration of the agreement to extend Aspen Court Dubey Holdings has agreed to the following. The new units to be constructed by Dubey Holdings shall not be more than 5 foot higher than the existing units on Aspen Court.
5 what?
5 foot higher.
5 foot higher? Higher.
The new units to be constructed by Dubey Holdings shall not be more than 5 foot deeper than the existing units on Aspen Court.
Longer, okay.
The new units to be constructed by Dubey Holdings shall join the existing HOA. The siding, roofing, and stone shall match the original color scheme of the Lakewood Place homes. A fence will be put up between the extension of Aspen Court and the Shul building. It will be a vinyl privacy fence. And 6 sidewalks will be extended along Route 88 and will be along Boulder Way as well. Those are 6 items. I'll get a copy myself and I'll have them.
Can I just ask on the third item? We in our resolution said that everything has to conform with the Lakewood. I don't know what these other townhomes have. Do they have stucco, stone, or whatever? That if you're going to conform with this,
There's no basic ability, there's nothing here. They want it to be uniform.
but I'm saying if the other ones are uniform, if the other ones are all on the side, you're not going to.
You said that it would be the same.
It would be the same as the other ones.
Why put that in?
look like. Because we've already, our resolution already said that it has to have some. Our resolution already
Sir, you want to testify?
The applicant indicated that 3 other units have some vinyl, some have stone. So I do think that the reason for the
At
delay.
least 1/3 of the front building was in the other, it's in 3773A, number 6. At least 1/3 of the front of the building we approved with stucco, stone, or brick foundation plantings.
Yes, that's there.
Same condition.
But,
Brian, I got some fuzzy numbers out of you. Can you be very specific of the footprint, the square footage of the footprint?
20 feet wide, 38 feet deep.
That's these, and the existing ones.
The existing ones, I'm assuming are 20 feet wide and 33 feet deep because they're 5 feet less than the other ones. And that's what it appears on the plan. I can scale it if you want, but it's very close.
Also, do the existing units have currently windows to the basement?
I can't hear that, sir.
Do the existing units have windows currently?
The first units that were constructed that were right next to us were constructed without basements.
On slabs?
On slabs. That's when Rabbi Canary came back and indicated it didn't work. We needed a basement to have a little bit extra area.
It makes a big difference if there are windows or not, and that's why I asked you before how high have the
So
ground?
these will be higher out of the ground than the slab on grade.
The plans do have 2 windows per unit.
Yes.
There's no.
Please, only one person should talk. Let's try to keep the records.
In answering Mr. Ribbiat's question, we could agree that there would be no egress windows in the basement. And that solves the problem of rentable basements. I don't think the board has to worry about that because there's 50 other homeowners in this association that don't rent their basements out. And that's my understanding from my familiarity with this project, that the other owners, because the size of them, it's a 700 square feet footprint.
One of the other units, they have bedrooms in the attic also, or other attics in the other units.
By driving by it, they look like standard Lakewood townhouses, with the exception of that those first few in the front that were done, they had trouble selling them, and then Rabbi Canary came back, and I remember I was here too when he talked about the Christmas decorations in the basement. Turns out that I guess his marketing was wrong because there's nobody that's got Christmas decorations in the basement. So the relief is indicated in the RDE report. The 4 townhouses at 13.29 dwelling units per acre, which was granted with the prior use variance. Front setback 25 feet, where 7.4 is proposed. Rear setback at 25, where 0 is proposed. The testimony should be provided on the difference between this and the prior application. The first application was for apartments. The second application was a use for this. This is now a site plan to have these 4 townhouses as condo ownership. The next question was on the parking spaces, and the homeowner association will be responsible for maintaining those. They'll be constructed by the developer in accordance with this agreement with the homeowner association. And number 3 is, will it be included in the homeowner association? Same thing, trash enclosure, it's all HOA. The HVAC system equipment will obviously be in the rear of the units and will be screened. And the other items in the report, if the board acts favorably, we would satisfy the board engineer with respect to the justification for the variances. The 2017 master plan background information indicates all the growth we have and concludes with therefore, it's important that Lakewood plan for residential development to grow, house its growing population, and this certainly would do that. The vision statement is to encourage growth and development in appropriate locations consistent with established land uses. The adjoining homeowners came to us and said they wanted it consistent with established land uses, and that's what the applicant is indicating. The municipal land use law, NJSA 40:55D2, on the purpose of the act. A is encouraging municipal action to guide the appropriate use and development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. It's my testimony that this does this, and that's my testimony.
I remember this application from the last time around, about this, and I'm happy to hear that it came to an agreement with the homeowner association and the neighbors over there. Oh, sorry, you're right, I'm sorry. And I'm satisfied and happy to hear that they finally, after all these years, I should say, they came to an agreement moving forward. But there is one objector that we had by email today. Again, for the COVID, the guy presented it, I don't know if he was in town or out of town, that he's here, which I think we should just address and make sure that it is. Jerry, did you see that?
Is that the question about the notice?
Is that the question about the notice? So just,
yeah. As I indicated to this gentleman.
Yeah, let's just put it on the record that.
Sure. The statute allows, and I'm looking now at NJSA 40:55D-12, subsection B. The requirement for notice shall be deemed satisfied by notice to, number one, the condominium association, or two, the horizontal property regime. I'm told by Ms. Siegel that notices of the hearing were sent to 2 association addresses. Hold on, I gotta look here. Promise I do it once. Lake Place Homeowners Association, Inc. That's at 864 Ocean Avenue. And Lakeview Properties Homeowners Association. That's at Aspen Court. So those are the associations. They receive notice, and if anyone, they have an obligation to let their participants know about the notice. So the notice is proper and is in conformance with the statute.
Okay. So then we're good to go.
Yes.
I'm just looking for the notice over here, make sure that he's not referring to anything else in his email. What would you say? There's nothing else there that he's addressing? Why?
Now, the resolution of approval from last time indicated that this gentleman testified in opposition to the application last time because of traffic issues. But we heard those.
Yeah, but I'm looking today. I want to see if he didn't write anything else on there. Okay, fine. So we covered his objection, and we plan to move forward on it. Other than that, I believe it is what it is.
Yes.
It's what we approved last time on the resolution, and is adhering to the resolution. If it's not going to be proper, then in resolution compliance, we'll find all the mistakes between the 2 resolutions. So we told them that we'll give them 4 houses, and I believe we're giving them now the same way you asked for. So anyway, that's what it is.
And Chairman, this originally is the same owner, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And for some reason, this property, this site, he didn't put it. He didn't offer it as an open space. He didn't offer it for playground. He just left it on his own.
I'm not sure he owned this at the same time he did the other.
He's the same owner of the use variance we gave previously. It's not the same
Now,
owner.
when they originally made the first, he was not.
No.
He was back. He was. So he kept this one separate, but it was not something that he offered them as an open space or anything. He just kept working.
A lot of it was not part of the previous approval.
What were they asking about the previous approval? Not
the
previous approval, the previous application, I should say.
But the previous application that was approved by this board for the use was 6 apartments, multi-family.
Wasn't that one the original?
That one was the second, the Lakewood Place.
That one was across the street.
Across the street?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that one's just east of it, and it's the same type of.
I understand that. I thought Bauman started this whole thing. I know. I remember this in there.
Okay, any other further questions from anyone?
Yeah.
One quick question, I just want to make sure, on the corner, you don't need to have, because you have trees planted over there, you don't have a site,
No, it's not going through, so it's a dead end, it's not a street.
oh, that's a dead end, that street?
Yeah. Any other one, anyone else?
Yeah, Brian, the house closest to Boulder Way, how far is it from the side?
It's 7.4 feet to the property line and probably another foot and a half, so you're 9 feet from the side.
And what should it be as far as setbacks?
Well, the front setback is 25, and that's, the last time we were in, we had the building setback 25, and in order to get some density on the property, we had a multi-family building. The neighbors didn't like that, the neighbors preferred this, which matches other developments in the area, so we realized it was worth to go with.
And Boulder's an internal street, it's not an external street, right?
Correct.
Did they expire? You wrote this from 2011.
What expired?
The
resolution.
The approvals from 2011.
Well, no, the resolution 2019 granted
Oh,
all 10 years variance.
There were three different applications.
Yeah.
I think it's quite aggressive.
Okay, we're open to the public. Anyone in the public want to be heard, please step up. Please come up.
Sir, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, so help you God? Yes? Would you give us your full name and spell your last name? Make sure you speak into the microphone.
Mike Berman.
Thank you.
And just remember, I know
E-E-R-M-A-N?
51 Aspen Court.
what years, Sherry?
P-E-R-M-A-N?
Yes.
Okay. Just remember one thing, we weren't here for about 16 months, so the public has 4 minutes to speak. Okay, thank you.
I just want, again, there's a little bit of confusion with notices. So I just want to point out that somebody who did not receive notice had called the office and asked if he could send in his objection, and he was told no. It seems like that was misinformation because due to COVID, it seems like you are accepting objections by email. So I just want the board to be aware of that. There are, I believe, 3 points that I would like the board to keep in mind before they approve this application. Number 1, the location of the trash enclosure. It is going to be facing Boulder Way. As of now, it is currently located over here, facing Aspen Court, servicing these units. Now he is moving it to here, into the ground, to face Boulder. So what that does is inconveniences all the homeowners along that route, as more people who are now going to use the trash, because you have the entire brick building, and now that just became more convenient trash can for them to use. The trash, there is no sidewalk in front of the trash can, so anyone who's sending a child to throw out the garbage needs that child, a 6-year-old child, to be standing in the middle of the street throwing out the garbage. The garbage will get all over the street. So I don't think that this location is an acceptable location for the garbage bins. That is the first thing. The second thing I would like the board to keep in mind is that are you posting a 0 for the setback alongside this common line? I think anyone familiar with construction will realize that means destroying someone else's property when you are building. This is not going to happen. When you do a zero tolerance foundation, exposing the next door foundation, you're going to dig up someone else's yard. You're going to dig up HOA property to build your building. So I don't see how the 0-foot setback will be allowed. And the third objection, I would like the board to keep in mind that there was no, that they testified that the house is not 33 feet long. As far as I know, the house is not 31 feet long, not 33, which effectively makes his houses more than 5 feet agreed by the HOA. So again, it will be now, on the next plan, I don't know how these things work, but just these 3 things I would like the board to keep in mind when making their decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, please step up.
Sir, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth?
Arie Bodenstein.
Arie what?
Arie Bodenstein.
Can you spell your last names?
Bodenstein. Bodenstein.
Thank you.
I live in Home Nature's Way. I got
And which Nature's Way in retrospect to this, across the street? Okay.
across the street.
Okay.
Okay, I'm the oldest one in the neighborhood there. And the corner is every morning, although it's a morning, but it's a real nightmare. When you see the kids, the school buses every morning in that corner is horrific. It's untolerable. There's no traffic light there. And I have some pictures that I have from Wednesday to take, and we got it. And in the morning, that happens morning, in the afternoon, and evening time. And I want to show you some pictures which cars are parked when you come into the shul. Cars are parked on Boulder Street. You have about 10, 12 cars that park there. For years, people come to shul, they have a place to park there. Now, when those houses are going to be there, the parking is not going to be sufficient as described, because it's always not enough when you have the regular driveway where I live. You always have visitors coming, people are coming, you don't have enough room. People are going to park on Boulder Street, which means that the residents who are going to be living in the new houses, in the new townhouses, are going to park there because it's going to be extremely convenient for them because they have a whole block to park. As a result, what's going to happen, people are going to start parking on the 88. Here, I'll show you some pictures.
So, if I could just ask that the pictures be qualified, just, I'm sorry if that's your name.
Mr.
Mr. Bowenstein, can you just indicate that he took the pictures and what date? I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Those pictures were taken 2 days before the last meeting that was postponed.
Mr. Bones, before you continue, this white building is the shul? Is this the shul?
That's the shul, right?
Is this the shul? Okay, good. That's good. No, you need the mic.
How many pictures do you have, Mr. Bowles? 3 altogether? No, I don't need it, that's all right.
So if you count the amount of cars, you will have about 10 to 12 cars, depending on the space of the car. Now, people are going to end up parking on the 88, on the shoulder. Now, when I want to make a left turn from the 88 going east, trying to make a left turn into Nature's Way, I have to wait for the approaching traffic to pass. Meantime, I'm going to be building backup of traffic, of going to start honking, and they won't be able to pass on the shoulder because the shoulder is going to be parked with the other people. So this is my concern. I think this is if you see there in the morning when you get there, you'll see the amount of traffic there as a nightmare.
You mentioned something about school bus and children. Do children sit on this corner waiting for?
Four corners, of course.
So where these houses, where this is proposed, do children use this lot to be able to get picked up from the buses? Or?
Yeah, they don't stay there. The people from the Lakewood, they all come from not all buses during the evening to Lakewood. So they stop at the corner there and just every morning it's a mess. It's dangerous. My wife is afraid to get out of the in the morning hours. She's afraid to get out of the street. She can't park there. She wants to go to every
So some of the buses stop.
She would go 7 o'clock in the morning.
So buses stop on 88 to pick up children from this complex without pulling into it.
Some buses, if they don't have enough kids to pull in, so
Okay.
they stop there. I think that's something we should definitely consider.
Okay.
So my main point is that if there's not enough parking and it's not really convenient for everyone to come in, from the designated place to come into the driveway. You're gonna be parking on Boulder, that's gonna be because of security.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Sir, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and no shadow?
Yes.
Would you please give us your full name and spell your last?
Malcolm Selinger, 46 Aspen Court.
Can you spell your last name for me?
Selengut.
I'm sorry, somebody coughing, didn't hear that, say it again.
Selengut. Meselengut.
Thank you. I'm sorry, thank you.
46
Aspen. As much as it was preferred, the townhouses over the original complex of apartments, was preferred as it would fit in with the neighborhood, not when they're gonna put stuff, 4 houses, it's gonna be a 7.5 setback to the property line as opposed to what's required, 25 feet. So, it may not be a problem to have that townhouse, it may be preferred even, but not when they're gonna stuff in 4 and take up end to end of the property lines. That could just be considered, we could approve 3, it's no problem.
The front setback requirement is being complied with along Route 88, right?
The setback from Boulder Way.
Boulder Lane, no.
And to the side to, 23, so there's existing houses there.
From Boulder Lane, there would be 7.4 feet, 25 feet required. But from Route 88, there is 25.9.
I'm not discussing Route 88, I'm discussing Boulder.
Well, yes, you're correct. There would be, there's a front yard setback variance request for.
I'm coming to this, I'm coming to talk that shouldn't be accepted.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Anyone else?
Thank you. Sir, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Would you give us your full name, spell your last?
Yecheskel Gali, Yechezkel.
Your first name is it again?
My first name is Yecheskel, Yechezkel, Gali.
Got it.
I just wanted to reiterate what was the points that were brought up already. We have a legal right to have a setback of 25 feet. And over here, there's only being a setback of 7.4 feet, which is something that will definitely, affect the look of the development, which, part of the reason why I bought this development is because I like, the fact that there is room around it and we're allowed to have 25 feet. And we're fully comfortable with him building, but as long as he should have the, even if it's not 25, even if he does 3 townhouses, he's not gonna have 25, but, there's gonna be more than 7.4 feet. It's literally, when we're driving into Boulder Way, we're gonna be almost right up to the houses. That's one pointer. And the second pointer is in regard to the trash can, where the area in where the trash can is proposed to be, that is a real danger because we always send our kids to put the trash in, and there's many little kids there. There's probably hundreds of little kids, especially that development has many younger kids because the houses are starter homes, and for a child to have to actually go into the street to put it into the dumpster is a serious danger.
Got it. Thank you.
Excuse me, what do you mean? You have to cross, you would end up crossing Boulder to the garbage, or from the other side? From which side are you going?
My address is 60 Aspen.
60 Aspen, so you're on the other side. You would have to cross through there.
I would have to cross not Boulder.
Not Boulder, through the parking lot.
Correct.
To the garbage instead.
Not a parking. I mean,
You have to go further to the garbage.
Exactly. It would be a parking lot.
Right.
There what they're proposing as a parking lot.
Right.
Instead of having where is the garbage can
Right before this development, right now. right in the garbage right now. That's there's one somewhere over here. Now they're moving the garbage here, so you're gonna have to, whoever's living over here is gonna have to walk down.
Which is spacing all their things, so you can't even, you know what I'm saying?
I don't know. Go ahead to the next. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Please step up. Excuse me. Whatever. We got one shot. If you want to say something else, please turn to our attorney.
Let's have the gentleman first testify. Okay. Sir, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth?
Yes.
And could you just give us your name and spell your last name?
NDP, last name spelled F-I-N-K, address is 84 Aspen Park.
And your first name is?
Benzie, B-E-N-Z-Y.
Thank you.
I remember a couple years ago, we were here back a while ago. This, I think, was a compromise with back and forth. He proposed he proposed apartments. We were, and I think the agreement of 4 townhomes was sort of, because that's what made sense. Again, to compromise at his end, I think his end would have worked as far as zoning to get at those apartments. That's why it made sense financially to go with the 4 option. I don't know why, I don't know exactly the numbers, but that's where we landed at 4. I think that was the way of compromise, and that still remains. In regards to notice, there's been a signing control for the past 3 weeks with all plans, everything highlighted, so I think notice was given. And I guess that's it. There is no actual bus stop on the corner. The bus stops, buses, at least 90% of them drive through Lakewood.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none? Close the public. Okay. I have
just one question. Chair, today,
Mr. Berman has an email from another person who wishes to object to the application. Does that sound right? Is that right? Yeah. So we'd like to read that email into the record as if we had it here in writing.
Yes. Yes, send it to Franny and Franny will read it.
Can I just ask who the person is? Mr. Berman, who's the name of the person? Just to be clear, because I was forwarded some correspondence between the board secretary and Mr. Moses. It was indicated Mr. Berman and Mr. Moses was told he could not email any comments. There's an email from Fran to Mr. Moses saying, please send me any of your objections you have for the record. That being said, we're here, the board wants to hear the comments. I have no problem. I want to be clear because the representation was he was told he couldn't comment, and he actually had an opportunity from the board to get any comments.
No.
Just send over the email.
Okay. Jerry, I have a question.
Do you have Ms. Siegel's email address?
What?
You have Fran Siegel's email address?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Jerry, I have a question for you. If this deal was negotiated with the homeowners association and signed on, do they have a right to object?
Oh, sure. Because they have a right to object as to the variances that are being requested, sure.
Even if their homeowners associations went through it and signed off on it?
Yes. Our zoning ordinance takes priority. If the homeowners association suggests you can build a 10-story apartment building, they can't, because they need our approval.
Okay.
And just to be clear, there were a few homeowners who were objecting, which I'm assuming that was the majority of the vote, when they were in favor.
Well, do we have any testimony about the hardship variances yet to legitimate the setback variances that are being talked about?
I did read the criteria from the master plan and the municipal land use law. And again, with respect to the...
Well, no, wait. The master plan talks about increased housing stock. That doesn't necessarily mean violating a setback.
Well, again, we were going with C2 variances, and the C2 variance, you got to show the benefits outweigh the detriments. Now, in this particular case, the 0-foot rear setback is because we're calling all the way up front. So the 0-foot is to the property line. That was done in that fashion so that we can do 4 units instead of 6. We had approval for 6. We came in with a site plan for 6, which had more setback. And a majority of the neighbors thought this was a less intense and a better application. So in order to reduce the intensity of the application and conform better with the neighborhood, certain relief was needed. And that was part of what the homeowner association, the majority of the people, had indicated. And we had one gentleman who gave that testimony, that 4 is less intense than 6. We heard about traffic, you know, for people going to the shul. If there's 4 units, you're going to have less going than 6. School kids, 4 units is less than 6.
Brian, can you interrupt me for a second?
Sure.
You point out, how did you fit 4? I see it's incredibly aggressive. How did you fit 6?
But six, they were apartments. It was an apartment building with parking in front and the building in the back.
Also with much smaller units.
Well, we're not one small units. They were the same size units.
Same size unit 6?
One building. One building. But in the RM zone, you're allowed to go
With the proper
9 feet high.
With the proper setbacks.
Yeah, and we had a use variance for them. And we came in with an application that was virtually by right, but we had too much opposition. And the opposition met with the applicant and said, listen, we don't like this, we don't think it fits. We think it's a round peg in a square hole. Do something different. The applicant suggested this, which requires this relief of a 0-foot setback to the line. That doesn't make any difference. It's part of the homeowner association. They're going to have that. The homeowner association will have to sign off on any of it. And then we go to the front, and we're at 7.4, but that's because there's a 12-foot dedication. This right-of-way formally was closer to a 12-foot dedication on this property that kicked it over this way. If you look at the tax map, all the way used to be this little narrow thing, and each property gave more to make it a 40-foot right-of-way.
So, Brian, from the house on the west side, or east, the 7.4, from the house 12 all the way, how many feet is it? How did it go up? 7.4 plus 12?
Well, the 7.4 plus a couple feet to the sidewalk, a 4-foot sidewalk, and then another 4 feet to the curb line.
So it's another 9.
So you're at roughly 18 feet.
Okay, can we talk about the garbage? I think we brought up some very important aspects about the trash.
And the garbage, what I heard is the safety for dropping it off. Certainly, if the board acts favorably, we can extend sidewalk to the trash enclosure. We can put a gate on the side so nobody has to stand in the road to use it. We could move the trash enclosure to a better location if the homeowner association wants
Why
it.
can't we leave it where it was?
Leave it where it was because it was at the end of the parking lot. And we extended the parking lot, so if a truck comes down, when the truck comes to pick it up, it would be problematic. And the homeowner association is the one that is responsible for it. And we would satisfy the homeowner association and the board engineer.
But the objectors brought up a valid point, that this trash enclosure, this trash bin is going to be used now by the people living across the street, because it's closer to them, and for the children to go out all the way to put the trash in would also become a problem. So I have to agree with them.
The children going out on the Boulder Way, there's no reason for it because we have sidewalk coming to Boulder Way. We can extend the sidewalk on the applicant's property to the dumpster enclosure. Put a gate where the sidewalk is so that the gate can be opened and the trash can be put in. As far as picking up the trash, this is a benefit to everybody on that road, because now instead of a trash truck coming down their street and making a lot of noise, the trash gets picked up on Boulder Way.
Can we turn it around, and that the trash truck that comes to go further to the end, and then
If that's what the board wants, if that's what the homeowner association wants, the applicant is flexible on the trash enclosure. He's trying to be a good neighbor.
And there's no way to leave it right where it was, facing the street, so that the same truck comes in right there, leave it right there.
It's right here.
So move it out to move it up further up, to the curb, to the street.
Over here?
No. Further up, higher. Right there, yeah.
Right there, there's utilities under there that you can't.
No. Sorry.
It's late, we've had a couple of them.
Yeah, I must listen to it. Right now, the trash enclosure was right here, right?
Yes.
So why don't we just leave it here facing the street over here? Same way you're coming down. The way you're coming down from now.
Because we extended this so that these people could park, that they could get into the traffic.
But the truck came down the street now, I picked it up.
The truck came this ended.
So what was it, there's a street here?
This is the parking lot for the other, unit. This was a dead end.
So you would take the traffic book and put it in right over here?
If the homeowner association is okay with that?
Or the shoe right here?
Yeah.
Okay. So the truck keeps on coming down here, please, so that's.
Okay. The homeowner association.
Thank you. Wasn't
Hey, it's my name.
Brian, another question on the west side where the zero lot line.
Yeah.
It's a zero lot line to what? What's that, grass? That's grass, over the ground.
Grass, yes.
It's homeowners association property, it's not.
Yes.
Right.
It's not.
But,
And is that part of the rest of the other houses, the ones next to it, zero lot ones as well?
The other ones are zero lot.
Actually, I think this question more bad than Brian. The homeowners agreement association that you emailed to us doesn't say anything about the parking spots.
We're doing,
As part of the application, you're saying homeowners association is going to give you 2 of your parking spots in the middle.
we're dedicating, trying to show that these, for the credit. These are our spots.
Right?
This is the premise, we are going to have 2 parking spots on here.
Right. In other words, they're giving that to you. In other words, for the count of the parking spots.
We have 2 per unit. We have 4 units.
There's 4 units, 2 per unit, but Brian testified they need 2.1. So you said you're going to use 2 parking spots from the homeowners association.
That don't exist.
What?
That don't exist.
Right. So should that be in the agreement between you and the homeowners?
We have no problem with condition of approval. We have no problem with that. All in-
yes, illegally used.
And also, just to make my part in the meeting before, all the parking is owned and maintained by the association. So it's going to be the same, all this.
I understand that, though. I'm saying, when you want to be part of this agreement, that they're actually granting to you.
Yes, when it's going to be part of the resolution, it has to present the spots.
So that, in other words, the agreement.
It's on the plans, it's on the application,
That's it, okay. Guys, I think we're close to the public, can I have a motion?
I'm not sure where, have we moved the garbage dumpster now? I don't know.
We've agreed to, work with the homeowners association and the board engineer to make the garbage dumpster work.
I think I gotta make a comment. I mean, I hear the objections from the public, and here's a suggestion, I think it will work for everybody, because I think this is gonna wind up coming back to us. Because they're not gonna work it out with the homeowners association. If they did 3 townhouses, they'd have less parking, they could flip the garbage cans, so it'd be out of, the trash enclosure, so it'd be out of property, and they'd pick it up. I think everybody be happy, and won't come back.
But if they've already been approved for 4 units.
I do it for small.
Yeah, but they can't fit it site plan-wise, it doesn't work.
We had
And the homeowners association don't let you
Let's
back.
not talk over, let's not talk over.
Okay. It's my suggestion.
Okay. Guys, any further comments on this suggestion?
And just a question, Jerry, you just said 4 was only approved between themselves.
No, the prior resolution.
The prior resolution has 6.
No. Resolution 3773A gives approval for 4 units.
With the same setbacks. Is it 0, and 7.5?
I don't recall the setbacks right now.
None of the bulks were granted, but it was the same map that was shown, 20-foot wide units, to be consistent with the other ones. And how that happened is we came back with the 6 apartment plan. in a multi-story building that we said, this is virtually by right because we had the use. And the neighbor said, we hate it, we'll fight you. And the applicant met with the neighbor, and the objector said, we'll give you 4 that look like us if you walk away from the 6. And that's what he did, and that's why we're here tonight for the 4. The applicant didn't agree to 3, the applicant agreed to 4, less than the 6 that he had approval on.
So Jerry, we have to approve 4. Is that the right?
Well, you don't have to approve the variances. I mean, the variances were not approved last time, just 4 units. So, you can have 4 units, but you should have to comply with zoning ordinances unless you want to grant a hardship variance or the setbacks. That's up to you. And you have to verify, think about whether or not it provides sufficient proofs to grant a variance.
And that's where we are right now, pending motion.
I'll make a motion to not approve this application and go with the recommendation of the engineer that 3 would work better than 4 on this side.
Well, if you want to deny it.
No, I'm not saying what.
Excuse me, guys, can I have Jerry speak? Thank you.
The application's for 4, Mr. Ambrose, yes or no? I mean, we're not going to design a project.
Right. So I'll deny the application.
I'll second that.
Too aggressive.
Okay. I have a motion to deny the application from Machine Ben, a second from Woody Gross. Madam Secretary, roll call, please. Just guys remember, yes means towards the denial.
Mr. Gelli.
No.
Mr. Lieberman.
No.
Mr. Naftali.
Yes.
Mr. Vivian.
No.
Mr. Inger.
Yes.
Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Mr. Halverson.
No.
We have the motion to deny the application did not pass.
Okay, can I have another motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Yes.
Second, who seconded that?
And that includes the variances that are being requested, right?
Mr. Gelli.
Yes.
Mr. Lieberman.
Yes.
Mr. Naftali.
No.
Mr. Vivian.
Yes.
Mr. Inger.
No.
Mr. Gross.
No.
And Mr. Halverson.
Yes.
That passes 4-3.
Okay, moving forward. Moving forward, we're going to the 34 River Avenue LLC.
Jerry, the letter that you got emailed.
Yes.
Adam, can you consider her time?
No, no.
Guys,
Do you have a question?
at 45, I'm not valid.
Did you have a question?
I'm on the right road. Okay.
The letter from the association, was that signed by all parties or?
I haven't seen it. I know it's emailed to the
I had on something that I.
It was 1364 River LLC.
One that was emailed was not signed.
I'm 4158, number 4158.
It was signed by 4 people on behalf of the Lakeview Place Homeowners Association. It was not, the one I have here, it was not signed by 2 people. But it was signed by 4 people on behalf of Lakeview Place. So that really has to be approved, Mr. Pfeffer. When you get your client to sign it, send it again.
Guys, let's move on.
7.02 to 7.08, 8.7 zone. Use variance for the management line, major site plan approval, in front of the warehouse with office and storage space.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Adam Pfeffer, in terms of the applicant. I just remember a little bit of a rush, we're going to move through it. I just want.
Does everybody have those plans?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Dowd, if I can, just, for the record, I know we originally started some testimony, it's been some time.
That was back in April.
Yeah, no, we're starting over, so there's no issue. I just want the record purposes. Yeah, I would ask, once Brian's ready, I just sworn in, we want the exhibits, and Brian will speak as fast as he can.
Mr. Flannery, ready? Say, do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, so help you God?
I do. Brian Flannery, Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer, professional planner. This is an application for a proposed warehouse on a property on Blueberry Court, which is off of Route 9. I have 4 exhibits. A1 is a lot consolidation plan. And it shows the subject property in the lighter grayish tone, which is the lower left-hand portion of the plan. In front of that, in a peach color, is another lot that has an approval for an auto parts store. To the north of that green hash is the remaining undeveloped property. So this property originally had approval for townhouses. It's back in for approval on this particular property for a warehouse. A1 shows the properties. A2 is the cover sheet of the application that's submitted, showing the warehouse building in the back, parking in front of it, and it shows the other 2 lots to the south and to the north of Blueberry Court. A3 this is the plan I expected to put up there. Is the layout and dimension plan, and it shows the 6,811 square foot of warehouse that we're requesting. And A4 is an area that shows, you can see Camping World across the street. You can see the DOT yard behind us. This is the only treed area. It's close to, it's just north of where Sidney Krupnik's office was, and just south of the shopping center.
Brian, I'm just drop confused. You're only coming in for one of the lots. There are like 4 lots being shown here, right?
The lot consolidation plan shows, because there was some confusion the first time about what's going on here. It was approved for townhouses in the back with a commercial development on the front. Townhouses are gone. There's no more residential. There's 3 pieces of property. In front of us, the planning board approved an auto parts store there. Our property, where we're asking for this warehouse, and then to the north of us is a big property that owner is working on, another highway type use, not residential. So we're down to very simple auto parts store, us, and they'll come back probably to the planning board with something that fits in the HD center.
So the people Lakewood doesn't need any more housing anymore, so we're...
Well, this particular location has determined that housing is not good. And I think if you look at the area, you'll see why housing is not good. They'll have no friends. Who can the kids play with? And it's all about the kids.
We're getting rid of the cul-de-sac?
Yes, and an application has been submitted to the governing body. If the board acts favorably, obviously it would be conditioned upon the township vacating the cul-de-sac.
Cul-de-sac, so it'll be nice and straight road.
Straight road in, right, maintained by the property owners, not a township responsibility. So, this application is for a warehouse. The intent is it's a small warehouse for business owners that don't have the warehousing.
I'm sorry to cut you short, but the house across the street on the green, those are also lots of being all consolidated or something?
Consolidated, something else.
Was it on the consolidation done on the other side yet?
No.
But it will definitely be consolidated?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So it's a warehouse for storage for the Route 9 businesses, so they don't have to go somewhere else to store their stuff. It's a shame Mr. Langry isn't here because he loves ratables, and this is a perfect rateable. It's in the back, it's not in anybody's face. When you look at A4, what's around, it fits in perfectly with the area.
Are warehouses not permitted in the...
Warehouses are not permitted in the HD zone. Yeah. Right. I didn't write the ordinance, even though Abe Penzer said.
I'm not sure you did write the ordinance.
Okay.
By the way, I want to know how, on the previous application, how they get their kids to bring the garbage out.
I was kind of going to report them. My 6-year-old kid.
College is pretty hard.
So, Terry's report, page 3, under zoning, it says why we're here, HD7 Highway Development Zone, warehouse is not permitted use. Minimum side setback, we're asking for 11.25 feet where 30 feet is required. I think when you look at 84 and you see what's around, nobody's getting hurt by that. Minimum rear yard setback, 10 feet is proposed where 50 feet is required. Again, when you look at 84 and how close everybody else is to the property line, we're consistent with the area. And the design waiver is required for providing a loading and unloading zone. When you look at the plan, it has an area where the trucks can pull in. We have parking out front. The building was shrunk down from what it was originally. And although it's not a designated loading and unloading zone, it's a place where the trucks can pull in and unload without being.
Can trucks pull in and pull out?
Yeah, and a plan was submitted.
I don't see a raised plan.
Yeah, it's there.
Where? What number?
Page 16.
Page 16?
I mean, whatever.
Page 16.
Yeah.
I didn't mark it, we'll call this 85.
Hold on a second, page 16.
What's that line?
Page 16 to 20, the traffic circulation
Dave, did you see page 16? Does that make sense to you? Are you okay with it? Okay, meanwhile, you can go ahead.
So, with respect to the variance relief, the master plan 2017, the vision statement, encourage growth and development in appropriate locations. It's my testimony that this does that, provides sufficient educational, recreational, and community facilities. This is a needed facility, it's a good place for it, it's a good rateable. The master plan strategies encourage development and redevelopment of underutilized sites. This is certainly a development. You see woods like that, I get worried there's going to be a forest fire. It's dangerous. I like seeing development there. Municipal land use law, NJAC 40:55D2 under purpose of the Act, encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use of development law in the state. My testimony is the warehousing should be permitted in the HD7 zone. It makes sense. It's a good rateable. I wish Mr. Langford was here to back me up on that, but I'm assuming the rest of the board would feel comfortably. With respect to the other comments in the report, we'll satisfy everything your engineer wants.
One of the comments from Mr. White's report is that you would provide testimony concerning the tenants and the hours and days of operation.
It's going to be a very infrequent use. It's for businesses on Route 9, and you can see, based on the architectural plan, I guess we're going to have to call that A6 now because I'm pulling it out. There's a small bathroom and just big storage areas, and the intent is for businesses to have a place to provide storage. So I would be surprised to see more than once or twice a week trucks going in and out of there. But it certainly has the availability to do that, and it's right on Route 9, which is the place for it to be.
Brian, I have a question. And are those garage doors?
Yes.
And is this one story or 2 stories?
One story.
It's a 1 story. How high is the building?
It'd be roughly 20 to 25 feet.
So not higher than 25?
Not higher than 25.
27, okay.
Not, Jerry, not higher than 25.
37, so.
All right, so then I just understand.
Right, what's behind there? Is it the 27?
The DOT storage area.
Oh,
right.
So those neighbors are not complaining.
Those neighbors are not complaining. They got notices. So.
Brian, just in reference to your question, Yoda's question, are you, when you're talking about that, it's on the west, right at the end of this, cul-de-sac? This circle that is on the plan, on the west side of this, what is that?
What's in the next property?
Yeah,
So that,
DOT?
you can see on 84, that's part of the DOT.
So there's no need for access?
No.
And is this application subject to the, units across the road being consolidated?
Yes.
The, Terry's report also talked about, there was an issue about the stormwater management report, different sizes. I'm looking at page 6, number D3. The pipe sizes for the system are not consistent with the detailed site plan and stormwater management.
We will provide consistent details and we'll make it work. There's plenty of room for that. And I just see reviewing the report in more detail, the plan did say 27 foot 6 inches. So if we can get 27 foot 6 inches so that the architect doesn't have to redraw the plan, I know how that's a
Terry's report also says appropriate approvals for the location of a well to be drilled in proximity to the known contaminated sites. The applicant will be doing that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we'll open to the public. See nobody in the public, we'll close to the public. Can I have a final motion or comment?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Abdallah to approve.
I'll second.
Second by who's that? Morty Rose, second that. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
With the condition of consolidating the lots?
Yes. With it. Heard that?
And vacate the whole
Mr. Gilli?
Yes.
Mr. Kinderman?
Yes.
Mr. Natale?
Yes.
Mr. Lydia?
Yes.
Mr. Inger? Mr. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Halverson?
Yes.
I want to take a recollection, if we could buy, we're out of Fed for a sport jacket.
I promise you in September.
We'll do a racing.
Just for the record, when I go, none of my suits fit.
Motion. Motion. Second.
Franny, resolutions for July 12th meeting? Yes. Resolutions for July 12th meeting?
Yes, for Burnside.
Road Burnside?
Yes, appeal number 4.
Hold on 1 second. Frank, Jerry, do we have members of the?
We have 3 of them. We have Brooke Bernstein,
We don't know what.
Mr. Weiss, Jonas Weiss, that was a side yard setback, and Moish Sutton was a front yard setback.
Wait a second. Talking about Road Burnside, did they object to the language that you put in there?
We worked it out with Mr. Gerke.
What was the language?
She has the representation. We're okay.
Yeah.
In the shul, right?
The shul's in there.
Yeah.
Before the 43rd CO is issued, there has to be a shul, but it cannot be in the basement.
I sent it all to you.
Okay.
They changed the all in detail.
Yeah. No, what I just said to you was changed a week ago.
A week ago, correct, I remember that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now a motion to approve the resolutions. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. And now a motion to pay the bills?
Aye.
Aye. Can you hear a motion?
Jerry called me.
A meeting adjourned for September 13th.
Thank you a lot. I'm going to motion to the door. We'll take the issue on next time.
Hey, Halverson, they don't need, you have to sign the
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everyone. See you in September. Isn't there a song? See you in September.
13.
I gave you back. And you know what, Jerry, you just take this stuff. I didn't know you were.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Franny.
Mamas and papas. Good night, everybody. Adam, call me about that in the morning.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
got to clean up the kitchen. Nobody cares.
Brian Flannery, clean up
No, I'm
your
sorry,
job.
go ahead.
Get a little stuff here.
What?